Chapter 1983. 1983 Ancient land reappeared. In the North Pole God tomb, everyone has been expelled. It is suspected that someone has obtained the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord. The Eternal God Lord is a realm above the God realm. He can suppress a star field. He is definitely a star field expert. He can directly destroy a life planet. If he can obtain the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord, he will be invincible in the world. It is suspected that someone has obtained the inheritance of the God Lord. What is an Eternal God Lord? He has a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. He has an almost eternal life. He can suppress a star field. He is a true universe expert. What happened in the North Pole Divine Tomb immediately spread throughout the world. Everyone on the internet was discussing it. Earth, which had been silent for a month, was once again in an uproar because of what happened in the Divine Tomb. After all, the Divine Tomb was a place that even the Dragon King and the other gods could not enter. That was an existence of a higher level. The news quickly spread to every god. The remaining gods of the Holy Church and the Lingxiao Treasured Palace also received the news very quickly. When all the gods received the news, their expressions were a little ugly. Even the other godly state experts had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Right now, Earth already had an existence like the Dragon King that had been suppressing the world for a lifetime. If an expert were to appear now, in the end, the unlucky ones would still be the gods. Even the true dragon sons of heaven were powerless as they looked at this news. Either we leave Earth or obtain the opportunities on Earth. Otherwise, no one knows what changes will happen to Earth. Some gods thought to themselves as they watched the changes one by one. At this moment, they had to consider the future. At this moment, on the Pacific Ocean, many figures were floating in the sky. Wang Xian was floating in the sky with a smile on his face. Beside him, Ao Jian and Ao Qitian were standing on the left and right. The rest of the members of the Dragon Palace did not follow them. Ao Jian, Qitian, check the surroundings and see which place is suitable to house the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian said to Ao Qitian and Ao Jian. It's the Dragon King. The two of them nodded. After the Dragon Palace is transferred here, find an opportunity to destroy the remnants of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church and get the Starry Sky chart from them. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, they should be able to gain a foothold in the boundless galaxy. Wang Xian thought to himself as he quickly teleported towards Jianghu City. He still had something to ask Ji Lingfei. Furthermore, he had been away for a month. He wondered if the two girls had missed him. Jianghu City has undergone earth-shattering changes. Dragon Gate Academy has expanded by more than 10 times compared to before. When Wang Xian arrived above Jianghu City, he immediately noticed the changes in the entire city. It was not an exaggeration to call the current river city the most prosperous world. Longmen Academy, which had two gods overseeing it, was backed by the invincible strength of the Dragon King. Now, Longmen Academy was the most powerful force on Earth. Sensing that the two little girls were also at Longmen Academy, Wang Xian's figure flashed as he came directly to the building in the middle of Longmen Academy. Ah, little brother, you still know how to come back. Huar saw Wang Xian suddenly appearing beside them and shouted at him with obvious dissatisfaction. Bang! Little girl. Wang Xian knocked her head directly. Wah, you left for a month straight away. Now that you're back, you want to hit me? SOB, sob. Huar let out a weird cry. Wang Xian was speechless as he took out two serval fetuses and handed them to the two little girls. When the two girls sensed the mysterious power contained in the serval fetuses, they were slightly shocked. They immediately closed their eyes. Master! Master! Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei, who were at the side, greeted him respectfully. How is it? Did anything big happen recently? Wang Xian asked them with a smile as he sat on a chair inside. Master, something big has indeed happened. At the North Pole Divine Tomb, everyone who entered the Divine Tomb was expelled. Many people guessed that someone had obtained the inheritance of the Master of God. Xiao Ran frowned slightly and said, All of them were expelled? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. A hint of seriousness appeared on his face. If someone had really obtained the inheritance of the Master of God, even he would have to be more careful. After all, that person was a Master of God. It was possible for him to leave behind some extremely terrifying treasures. Teacher, I have something here too. At this moment, Ji Lingfei, who was at the side, also said with a slight frown. What is it? I'm here because I have something to ask you too. Wang Xian put the matter of the divine tomb aside. Even if someone really obtained the inheritance of the Master of God, it would take at least a few decades or even thousands of years for that inheritor to grow up. By then, he might have already broken through to the sixth change of the divine dragon realm. A few days ago, my master sent me a message saying that he would judge me in the future. He even said that he would destroy all of us. Ji Lingfei's face was filled with worry as she continued. Furthermore, they will definitely not give up on my senior brother so easily. I'm afraid that they will have other means to take revenge. Furthermore, I'm afraid that my master will personally descend here. What is your master's realm? How strong is he in the boundless galaxy? If he were to descend here, how long would it take? Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and asked consecutively. He was not afraid of the survivors of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Even if they did not seek revenge, Wang Xian was prepared to get rid of them. As far as I know, my master has already ignited 8 wisps of divine fire. He is also a giant in the boundless galaxy. If he were to descend here, he would need at least 1 to 2 years. I just don't know if my master would take this risk. Ji Lingfei replied. 8 wisps of divine fire? Wang Xian's eyes flickered. He wasn't very worried about the god of 8 wisps of divine fire. Even if he were to descend here 1 to 2 years later, he would be able to deal with it by then. At that time it was not certain who would kill who. In fact, he might not even need the other party to descend. He might even bring Earth directly to the boundless galaxy. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the entire ground began to shake all of a sudden. It was as if a huge earthquake had occurred. What's the situation? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. He flew into the sky instantly. Xiao Ran and the rest followed behind him in astonishment. They floated in the sky above Longmen Academy. This is? What a pleasant surprise. When Wang Xian looked towards the south, a smile appeared on his face. He did not expect that a divine kingdom would appear again in the south. It was a brand new divine kingdom. In the past 10 years, many divine kingdoms and ancient lands had appeared. At that time, Wang Xian had missed out on many treasures. He did not expect that there were still divine kingdoms and ancient lands on Earth that were recovering. This was completely a gift for him. This kingdom of God belonged to the Dragon Palace. No other forces could get their hands on it. Chapter 1984. 1984 suppressed the world. What happened in the south? Did another ancient land appear? I didn't expect an ancient land to appear at this time. How many treasures does this earth have? Quick, everyone in the North Pole Divine Tomb has been expelled. I didn't expect a divine kingdom to appear immediately. The divine kingdom that just appeared must have many treasures in it. When the ancient land in the south shook and the divine kingdom appeared, everyone quickly flew towards the south. A new divine kingdom. All the gods on earth sensed the change in the south and revealed happy expressions. They immediately flew towards the divine kingdom in the south. Every divine kingdom that had just been unearthed must have the treasures of this god when he was alive. If this god had the power of 8 or even 9 wisps of divine fire when he was alive, the treasures inside might be a huge opportunity for their gods. Especially for the gods on earth who had just recovered. As long as they had enough resources, they could quickly improve. The appearance of this god's kingdom might be even more precious to them than the tombs at the north and south poles. The group of gods immediately flew towards the ancient land in the south. Let's go. We'll go too. At the same time, Wang Xian spoke to Xiao Ran and the rest in the sky above the Dragon Gate Academy. He then flew towards the divine kingdom in the south. After 2 consecutive teleportations, they soon arrived above the newly emerged ancient land. This divine kingdom is pretty big. Wang Xian looked at the divine kingdom in front of him, his eyes gleaming. This divine kingdom that had just been excavated had an area of 300 kilometers. The divine kingdom was different from the other ancient divine kingdoms. It was filled with a wild aura. In the middle of the divine kingdom was a 1,000-meter-wide golden lion statue. This seems to be the divine kingdom of the Golden Lion King. Huar and Kair looked at the kingdom of the Golden Lion King below and guessed doubtfully. The Golden Lion King? Wang Xian looked at the 2 little girls. The Golden Lion King is a demonic beast god. It has already ignited 8 wisps of divine fire. It is very powerful. Kair introduced it to Wang Xian. 8 wisps of divine fire? It seems like there are many good things inside. Wang Xian smiled and scanned the entire divine kingdom with his dragon eyes. There was an entrance to the divine kingdom that was completely open. With his current strength, he could only blast open an entrance from other places. The divine kingdom that had lost its god could only withstand the attacks of 2 to 3 wisps of gods. At this moment, countless figures were flying over from the surroundings. One by one, the gods had already arrived at the entrance. A newly unearthed kingdom of God would definitely drive the entire world crazy. Moreover, the kingdom of God that was unearthed was different from the tomb of the eternal God. It was not that difficult to enter. Buzz buzz buzz. In less than a minute, nearly 10 gods had appeared in the surroundings. In addition, there were hundreds of thousands of people who had gathered in the surroundings. Their eyes were burning as they stared at the kingdom of God in front of them. Let's go to the entrance. Wang Xian moved and arrived at the center of the entrance of the kingdom of God. Ha! When Wang Xian was floating in the middle of the entrance, everyone was slightly shocked. Even the gods' pupils contracted slightly as they stared at Wang Xian with a solemn expression. It's the Dragon King. The Dragon King is here too. The Dragon King is here. This. Hundreds of thousands of people looked at Wang Xian and the rest at the center of the entrance. Their eyes were sparkling. No one is allowed to enter this divine kingdom without my permission. Wang Xian glanced at the 10 deities around him and said calmly. His voice was heard by everyone instantly. Come, let's go in. After Wang Xian finished speaking, he flew straight into the divine kingdom. He ignored everyone around him. Hiss. The hundreds of thousands of people around were slightly stunned when they heard the Dragon King's words. A helpless look appeared on their faces. We can only wait for the Dragon King and the rest to come out before we drink soup. Sai, this is the world of the strong. In the past, the few major forces of the Lingxiao treasured palace monopolized these ancient lands. Now it's the Dragon King's turn. Let's forget about it. Some people were talking helplessly. Now that the Dragon King had suppressed the world for a lifetime, the treasures that were unearthed would naturally be occupied by the Dragon King. They did not have the right to compete with him. After all, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church had almost been destroyed. This? Compared to the natives on Earth, those disciples who had followed the gods to descend and the surrounding gods who had ignited their divine flames looked very embarrassed. Nowadays on Earth, other than the divine tombs, only these divine kingdoms want to obtain resources. Now that the divine kingdoms have been directly occupied by the Dragon King, all the gods looked very unhappy. Earth was very small to begin with and there were many gods now. There were simply not enough resources to share. These divine kingdoms were the only way for them to increase their strength, now that they were occupied by the Dragon King. As for asking them to compete with the Dragon King, they really didn't dare. Now that the Dragon King had suppressed them for an entire lifetime, even if all of them joined forces, they would just follow in the footsteps of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Buzz buzz buzz. At this time a few other gods had arrived. Hearing the discussions around them, they frowned slightly. The 4 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering looked at each other and shook their heads with a frown. Everyone, as long as the Dragon King is here, any treasures on Earth have nothing to do with us. Now that the Earth has stopped in the void of the universe, entering the starry skies is undoubtedly a narrow escape. Right now we can either risk a narrow escape or destroy the Dragon King. At this moment, a voice suddenly entered the ears of the surrounding gods. The eyes of the surrounding gods flickered. Destroy the Dragon King? With what do we use to destroy the Dragon King? Let's wait until your Lingxiao treasured palace has the strength to fight against the Holy Church. A god coldly replied in a direction. His face was gloomy and his body moved, instantly leaving this place. The surrounding gods left the place unwillingly. Soon all of the gods left. It seems that they are wavering. 2 figures stood in the sky 100,000 meters high and said calmly. Although they are wavering, they still have to depend on us in the end. Unless we can use our strength to fight against the Dragon King, they will not join us. Another figure said calmly. Everything depends on that Qiang. He has used up all the resources of our Lingxiao and the Saint Hall and placed everything on him. I hope that he will not disappoint us. The figure next to him said expectantly. In just a few days he has already ignited 5 wisps of divine fire. After a period of time, we will be able to take our revenge completely. The eyes of the 2 figures flashed with a cold light. They looked down at the divine kingdom with hatred in their eyes, and their figures slowly disappeared. I recommend a very good book, The Demon King of the City, written by Happier Heo. It's so wonderful that you can't miss it. Chapter 1985. 1985. In 1985, the kingdom of God was suppressed for a lifetime. Daddy was really domineering just now. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter. It's so cool. Inside the kingdom of God, Hua Kai held Wang Xian's arms on both sides and said to him with a smile, "After suppressing the Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church, there will naturally be some benefits." Wang Xian smiled. The Dragon Palace had suppressed the Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church for this lifetime. During this period, the Dragon Palace would naturally take over the divine kingdom. As for the other gods, would they have any objections? So what? It was already good enough that Wang Xian didn't suppress them all. Let's go and see if there are any treasures inside. Wang Xian and the rest flew inside. All the ancient lands on Earth were huge resources to Ao Crab. He could totally devour all of them. However, Wang Xian did not do so for the time being. These ancient lands of the divine kingdom were a place of cultivation for the people on Earth. If Ao Crab were to devour these ancient lands of the divine kingdom, the cultivation speed of the people on Earth would be the same as that of the supernatural continent. Without the assistance of the divine kingdom, it was extremely difficult to produce a demigod powerhouse. It was different with these divine kingdoms. The divine kingdom was the best place for cultivation on the Transcendence continent. For the future of the people on Earth, Wang Xian thought about it and decided not to let Ao Crab devour all the divine kingdoms. "Master, have you lit the divine fire?" The 5 of them were searching for all kinds of treasures in the divine kingdom. When Xiao Ran and the rest saw Wang Xian making a move, they were shocked. "Yes." Wang Xian nodded his head faintly. "In a few days, the Dragon Palace will once again stand tall in the ocean. It can be considered as the complete return of the Dragon Palace." The Dragon Palace. Xiao Ran nodded his head silently. At that time, the underwater Dragon Palace had shocked all the powerhouses in the world. Now, it was about to be shown to the world again. "Wow, Daddy, 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 Golden Lion, there's actually a golden lion in there." At this moment, Hua's excited voice came from the front. "Ha!" Wang Xian flew over and looked at the golden lion statue in the center of the kingdom of God. As expected, there were 2 mighty golden lions there. The 2 golden lions were about 10 meters in size. Their golden fur looked extremely mighty. A golden lion that has already become a god? Could it be the fallen Golden Lion King? Wang Xian flew over and sized them up. "Daddy, it's not that Golden Lion King. It should be his descendants that have used a special method to keep them alive. These 2 golden lions are so cool. They are simply too cool." Hua and Kair stared at the 2 golden lions with sparkling eyes. However, they did not dare to go over. After all, they were 2 golden lions that had lit up a wisp of divine fire. Their attacks were extremely ferocious. Roar! Roar! The 2 golden lions stared at Wang Xian and the rest with a curious and cold gaze. They grinned and roared. "They are indeed powerful. If you like them, let them be your mounts." Wang Xian looked at the 2 golden lions and said with a smile. At the same time, the dragon's might emitted from his body directly covered the 2 golden lions. Roar! 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 The 2 golden lions felt the dragon's might from Wang Xian and their eyes instantly revealed an extremely fearful expression. They laid on the ground and stared at Wang Xian with trembling eyes. "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Come, I'll give you delicious food." Hua and Kair saw this scene and immediately took out some food. She walked to the 2 golden lions and handed it to them. "Roar, roar, don't kill us." The 2 golden lions looked at Hua and Kair. Their bodies shrunk to only 1 meter in size. "Follow us and we won't bully you. No one will dare to bully you in the future. How about it?" Hua took the food and placed it beside them. Roar! The 2 golden lions looked at Wang Xian in fear. They bent down towards Hua and Kair to show their submission. "Wow, you're so obedient. That's great. I'll call you gold and gold coins from now on." Hee. Hua said excitedly. The 2 golden lions lay there speechless. "Let's go. We will take all the treasures in the divine kingdom." Wang Xian walked over and ordered the 2 golden lions. Now that he had ignited the divine fire, as one of the top divine dragons in the universe, Even if the golden lions were not from the water tribe, they were still unable to resist under his pressure. This was also the reason why the two golden lions were willing to submit to the two little girls. Ho ho, yes. The two golden lions spoke to Wang Xian in awe and stood up slowly. You two grow bigger and bring us along. Huar patted the head of the golden lion and spoke to them. Ho ho. The two golden lions nodded and returned to their original size of 10 meters. They didn't forget to eat the food that Huar had given them. Roar. The two little girls rode on the golden lion. They leaped into the air, causing the two little girls to cheer. A god-level mount was not something that an ordinary god could obtain. 2 hours later, Wang Xian and the rest searched the entire kingdom of God and kept all the valuable items. Let's go, gold coins. Huar Kaier sat on the golden lions and said loudly while stroking their fur excitedly. Roar. The two lions roared and flew out of the divine kingdom while exuding a powerful aura. A majestic roar resounded across the entire sky. When they flew out, there were already millions of people gathered outside the divine kingdom. Although because of the Dragon King's order, no one dared to enter, they were still waiting. When the Dragon King came out, they could have some soup. When they saw two divine beasts emitting divine might fly out from inside, they were shocked. Oh my god, that's a golden lion, it's a divine beast that ignited the divine fire. Look at them, on top of them are the Dragon King's two daughters. Good heavens, the two divine beasts have become the Dragon King's daughters' mounts. Hiss, in just 2 short hours the Dragon King and the others have subdued two divine beasts. These are divine beasts. Shocked voices rang out one after another as everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. The Dragon King had actually obtained two divine beasts in the ancient land. This, who wouldn't be tempted? Everyone can enter the divine kingdom. There are still some resources inside. At this moment, the Dragon King's voice rang out. Everyone looked towards the exit and saw that the Dragon King and the others had also flown out. There are still some resources inside. Let's go in. Let's quickly enter. There are some things that the Dragon King doesn't like, but they are treasures to us. Quick, quick. Everyone was shocked that the Dragon King had obtained two divine beast mounts and was frantically rushing into the ancient land. Chapter 1986. 1986 and 1986, the Dragon Palace descended. Extra, the ancient land has appeared once again. The Dragon King's words have intimidated all the gods. 2 hours later, the Dragon King subdued two divine beasts, the golden lions, and left. The Dragon King's two daughters rode on two divine beasts, the golden lions. It was simply too cool. The Dragon King has obtained two divine beasts that have ignited divine flames in the ancient land. The Dragon King's power has been strengthened once again. Less than a day after the ancient land was born, the entire world was once again in an uproar. In particular, the appearance of the two divine beasts, the golden lions, caused everyone's faces to reveal looks of envy and shock. These were two divine beasts at the level of gods. They had actually become the Dragon King's daughters' mounts. Using divine beasts as mounts, what kind of concept was this? In the entire earth, no one could be as mighty as the Dragon King. The news caused a huge shock. Especially when the gods saw this news, their expressions became even more unsightly. Two divine beast mounts. If they could enter the divine kingdom, these two divine beasts might be tamed by them. These were two divine beast mounts. All the gods felt deep jealousy. Once, a divine beast-level pet cub could cause two powerful forces to fight over it. Now they also wanted to fight over it. If the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church really have a way to fight the Dragon King, it's not impossible to join. Sometimes, some risks have to be taken. Some gods looked at the information on the internet with cold eyes. No one who could become a god was indecisive. They all had their own boldness. If they were really forced to a certain extent, they would be crazier than anyone else. Everything was for the sake of becoming stronger. The current gods were already forced to the edge of a cliff. If it was the soaring heavens treasured palace and the Holy Church suppressing the current life, they might choose to endure for a period of time. After all, the two major forces would bring Earth into the boundless star field. Now that Earth was docked in the void, there was no starry sky map and no hope of improvement. In the situation where there was no way forward, they could only fight to the death. Two divine beasts. Back then we collected more than a dozen divine kingdoms, but we didn't get any treasures like divine beasts. At the beginning only some weak divine kingdoms were unearthed. If there were more divine kingdoms to come, they wouldn't be any worse than the Golden Lion's divine kingdom. Damn Dragon King, if it weren't for them all the treasures would be ours. When we go back, we will definitely be able to ignite 1 or 2 wisps of divine fire. At this moment, in the sacred hall, the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the other gods of the sacred hall revealed furious expressions when they heard the news. All of this originally belonged to them. Now they could only hide here. Furious and unwilling. Let's wait a little longer. 10 days at most, 10 days at most. Yuan Kuei took a deep breath at the side. A terrifying killing intent shot out from his eyes. Dragon King. In the villa in Jianghu City, Ao Jian and Ao Qiqian returned not long after Wang Xian and the rest had returned. How is it? Have you found a suitable place? Wang Xian immediately asked them. Dragon King, we have found 3 places that are more suitable for the Dragon Palace. Ao Jian nodded. Currently, the sea-pacifying needles in our Dragon Palace are up to 10,000 meters tall. There are only a dozen or so places in the ocean that are more than 10,000 meters deep. We will choose 3 good locations from these dozen or so places. We will wait for your final decision, Dragon King. Alright, let's go and take a look. Wang Xian nodded his head. With a shift of his body, he teleported towards the depths of the ocean. The earth had undergone a change. The entire earth had expanded by 4 to 5 times. The sea area that was originally thousands of meters deep and thousands of meters deep had also increased by a few times. The deepest part of the ocean had already reached about 20,000 meters. It could totally house the underwater Dragon Palace. This place is not bad. However, the area is not big enough. We need to modify it at the bottom of the ocean. Wang Xian chose one of the 3 locations. It was located in the middle of the ocean and there was a rather big island beside it. Call Prime Minister Gui over. Ask him to modify the surroundings. After that, we will transfer the Dragon Palace over immediately. Wang Xian instructed them once again. It's the Dragon King. The 2 of them nodded and took action immediately. Daddy, where is the Dragon Palace now? Is it fun? When Wang Xian returned, the 2 little girls couldn't help but ask curiously. Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the rest were also filled with curiosity. You will know when the time comes. Wang Xian smiled mysteriously and didn't explain too much to them. This made the 2 little girls' faces filled with displeasure. They snorted coldly as they plucked the fur of the gold coins and gold pieces. This made the 2 golden lions want to cry but have no tears. 2 weeks passed very quickly. When Wang Xian received the news from the members of the Dragon Palace, a smile appeared on his face. The matter regarding the ocean had been settled. Next, it was time to transfer the Dragon Palace over. Xiao Ran announced that the Ocean Dragon Palace has returned. Also, announced that all the gods can become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he gave an order to Xiao Ran. Ha! Xiao Ran was slightly stunned. He looked at his master in astonishment. Yes, master. He didn't ask further and nodded immediately. The Dragon Palace will be transferred to Earth. Next, we will destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. We will find the starry sky map and make Earth move toward the boundless galaxy once again. Wang Xian's eyes were sparkling. Next, he had to make plans for the future. Apart from destroying the Holy Church and the Lingxiao treasured palace, he was also planning to recruit the gods. Recruiting them was to prepare for Earth to enter the boundless galaxy. There was no harm in having more gods under his command. However, Wang Xian was not planning to recruit the gods into the Dragon Palace. In the future, he might arrange for these gods to be placed at the Longmen Academy. To resist foreign aggression, one must first settle down. Before Earth entered the boundless galaxy, Wang Xian had to ensure that there were no problems within Earth. You 2 girls, don't you want to know what the Dragon Palace looks like? Let's go, I'll bring you to take a look. The corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly as he said to Huay'er Kai'er. All right. Let's ride Gold Coin and the rest. The 2 girls' eyes lit up as they said excitedly. Let's go. Wang Xian nodded and flew directly toward the center of the ocean. What's that? When they arrived at the center of the ocean, 2,000 disciples of the Dragon Defense Division were standing on the surface of the ocean. They formed a circle within a radius of 1,000 kilometers. They were holding tridents in their hands and their bodies were emitting a blue glow. They exuded a powerful dignity. Dragon King. Prime Minister Ao Yeka and a group of godly state experts of the Dragon Palace were standing in front of them. When they saw Wang Xian, they bowed respectfully. Chapter 1987. 1987. The Dragon Palace descended in 1987. Are you all ready? Wang Xian looked at the members of the Dragon Palace and said faintly to them, Dragon King, everything is ready. Prime Minister Gui bowed and said, All right, since that's the case, let the Dragon Palace descend. As Wang Xian spoke, he moved and immediately arrived at the center of the Dragon Defense Division. He extended his arms slightly toward the sky. Behind him, Huarkire looked at this scene with a face full of curiosity. Buzz. Rumble. At this moment, a gigantic object that blotted out the sun appeared out of thin air above Wang Xian. The vast and majestic Dragon Palace slowly emerged. 9-colored light enveloped it. When it was revealed in this space, the entire world shook. It covered an area of more than 1,000 kilometers and was no smaller than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. It looked even more majestic than the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. The 10,000-meter-long ocean-pacifying divine needle stood in the center of the Dragon Palace. The divine dragon sat on it, and the words ocean-pacifying divine needle flickered with golden light. Even if it was a few thousand kilometers, it could still be seen clearly. Wow! Hua Er and Kyer were astonished. They raised their heads and looked at the majestic Dragon Palace. Greetings, Dragon King. At this moment, the members of the Dragon Palace immediately knelt down on one knee and shouted loudly. Their voices were earth-shattering. Whoosh! Wang Xian waved his arm gently and arrived directly above the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace shall be suppressed for an entire lifetime. Wang Xian looked down at the Dragon Palace beneath him. He looked down at everything around him and shouted in a deep voice. A voice spread across the entire earth. The Dragon Palace shall be suppressed for an entire lifetime. This is the voice of the Dragon King. It's the voice of the Dragon King. When everyone heard these words, their faces were slightly shocked. They quickly looked towards the ocean. What is that? What is that? Oh my God, is that the Dragon Palace? The Dragon King's Dragon Palace? More than 10 years ago, the Dragon King's Dragon Palace was located at the bottom of the ocean and shocked the world. Now the Dragon Palace is even more shocking. When everyone saw the enormous Dragon Palace near the ocean, they were shocked. At this moment, the gods also looked toward the ocean. When they saw the majestic Dragon Palace, their pupils constricted again. Look on the internet. The Dragon King's disciple Dean Xiao has posted a message. He said that the Dragon King is recruiting all the gods. The gods can become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. This is a big deal. The Dragon King is openly recruiting underlings and only godly state underlings. The Dragon King is too domineering. He made all the gods become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. When everyone was shocked by the Dragon King's voice, someone on the internet quickly found the message that the Dean of the Dragon Gate Academy, Xiao Ran, had just posted. When they saw the content of the message, they were all shocked. The Dragon King actually announced that the gods could join the Dragon Palace and become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. Was too domineering. He made the gods external members of the Dragon Palace. Perhaps on Earth, only the Dragon King had the strength to say this. The Dragon King and the Dragon Palace indeed had the qualifications. Becoming an external disciple of the Dragon Palace, this Dragon King is somewhat insincere. The gods quickly received this news, and their expressions became slightly unsightly. After all, they were also gods who had ignited the divine fire. If we don't join the Dragon Palace, will the Dragon King destroy us? Some gods' eyes flickered, and they were extremely gloomy. There were also some gods who were considering whether or not they should ask the Dragon King for some information. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, something unexpected happened again. In the middle of the current continent, the earthquake-like situation happened again. A huge divine kingdom was slowly unearthed. The ancient land, which covered an area of 200 to 300 kilometers, once again shook the entire world. On the ocean, Wang Xian was floating above the Dragon Palace. When he sensed the vibration coming from the center of the continent, he was slightly stunned. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. Is this a congratulation for the arrival of the Dragon Palace? He smiled faintly and looked at the leaders of the Dragon Palace. A new divine kingdom has appeared at the center of the continent. Bring all the valuable items here. Wang Xian said to the leaders of the Dragon Palace. Kiki Dragon King, leave it to us. I'll go. Mo Sha and Ba Qi looked in the direction of the continent. Their eyes were sparkling. Qitian, Xingmu, bring Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the others with you. Prime Minister Gui looked at Ao Qitian and Ao Xingmu and ordered. Yes, Prime Minister Gui. Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, and the others nodded. Together with Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the other 2 members of the Mad Dragon Seed, they immediately flew toward the direction of the continent. There were 6 gods in total. Apart from Ba Qi, Mo Sha, and the others who could only fight against 2 wisps of divine fire, Ao Qitian and the others could fight against 4 wisps of divine fire. This strength was enough to suppress everything. Perhaps only Yuan Kuei from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace was slightly stronger than them. However, the Lingxiao Treasured Palace did not dare to come and seek death. Wang Xian's arm slowly swung downwards. The gigantic Dragon Palace fell towards the bottom of the sea. Daddy, bring us to the Dragon Palace to take a look. Hua Kair's excited voice rang out. Wang Xian nodded his head. At the same time, when another divine kingdom was unearthed, the attention of the entire world shifted from the Dragon Palace to the ancient land. Countless people surged towards the ancient land. In the previous ancient land, even if the Dragon King was the first to enter and take away the most precious treasures, the things that were left behind still drove them crazy. Now they had to rush over quickly. Even if they could get some soup, it would still be good. The gods were also very unwilling. They quickly flew towards the divine kingdom. The 2 gods closest to the entrance saw it and did not hesitate at all. They directly flew inside. If the Dragon King came again, they might not be able to enter. Ping. However, just as the 2 gods were about to enter the divine kingdom, an enormous ocean-pacifying needle landed in front of them, causing their expressions to instantly change. Kiki, our Dragon Palace has suppressed this world for a lifetime, so all the treasures naturally belong to us. You are not allowed to enter. Otherwise die. Ba Qi's gaze swept past the 2 gods at the entrance, then arrogantly swept past the surrounding gods. The corners of his lips curled up as he said coldly. When the 2 gods saw the ocean-pacifying divine needle in front of them, they looked at the Dragon King's subordinates in the sky, and their expressions were incomparably ugly as they retreated. The experts of the Dragon Palace have arrived. Let's prepare to drink soup. Just as the Dragon King said, the Dragon Palace will suppress this world for an entire lifetime. All the treasures will belong to them. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they took a deep breath and slowly spoke. No one had any objection to the Dragon Palace taking over this ancient land again. Good, this ancient land appeared at the right time. I didn't expect that even God would help us. However, at this moment, a few figures in a place that was hundreds of thousands of meters away from this ancient land were covered in flames, and their faces were filled with excitement and malevolence. Chapter 1988. 1988, suppressing the members of the Dragon Palace. Only 6 members of the Dragon Palace have arrived. This is the time for us to act. As long as we can easily suppress them, the other gods will naturally know what to do. After the Dragon King occupied the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom twice in a row, the other gods have long been dissatisfied. Just now, the Dragon Palace actually announced that the gods can join the Dragon Palace. However, the Dragon King is too arrogant. He actually wants the gods to become external disciples of the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King is too arrogant. He completely doesn't put the gods in his eyes. You have to know that this group of gods may have once ignited 7, 8, or even 9 wisps of divine fire. They are so arrogant. How could they join a god faction with the highest 6 wisps of divine fire? Moreover, they are only external members. This is simply an insult to them. Among the 7 figures shrouded in flames, 6 of them looked down with hatred in their eyes. Hee, didn't the Dragon King's Dragon Palace descend into the ocean? Why don't you just let me say it? I'll go and destroy the entire nest of the Dragon King. There's no need to go through so much trouble. The fiery red figure in the middle of the group smirked as he listened to the words of the people around him. A lazy look appeared on his face as he said indifferently. We absolutely cannot take any risks before we have 100% confidence. Yuan Kuei looked at the young man beside him and said with a solemn expression. I have almost ignited 7 wisps of divine fire. With the weapons and battle experience in my hands, I can contend against 7 wisps of divine fire. Isn't this a 100% confidence? The young man looked at Yuan Kuei and snorted lightly. This time we can't take the slightest risk. If we fail, we won't have a chance to turn things around. I'll only act when I have 100% confidence. The strength of the subordinates of the Dragon Palace is extraordinary. I'll only be at ease if I can rope in a group of true dragon sons of heaven and gods. Yuan Kuei's face was gloomy. With me around, you can rest assured. The young man smiled and looked down. When they come out, I'll make my move and show you my strength. Yuan Kuei and the others looked at him and nodded heavily. They looked down at the Divine Kingdom and waited quietly. I wonder what treasures the Dragon King's subordinates will get this time. This ancient land seems to be bigger than the one 10 days ago. There might be more treasures in it. Look at the internet. Someone took a picture of the Dragon King's Dragon Palace on the internet. My God, it's as big as the skyscraping treasured palace, and it looks even more majestic. There seem to be a lot of people in the Dragon Palace. Those are all the strength of the Dragon King. With the current power of the Dragon King, he can really be said to be invincible in the world. Even the recruitment of the gods this time is only to make them external members of the Dragon Palace. It's too domineering. Only the Dragon Palace can make the gods external members of the Dragon Palace. The more the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom appear, the stronger the forces of the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace will be. It's hard to imagine what other forces can contend with the Dragon Palace. To contend with the Dragon King, one must obtain the inheritance of the eternal God in the divine tomb. As time passed, more and more people gathered around the ancient lands of the Divine Kingdom. Soon there were several million people. Because of the orders of the 8 points, no one dared to enter. Even some gods hid in the surroundings. The strength of the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace was too strong. Especially just now, when the Dragon Palace descended into the ocean, its mighty power caused many people to be shocked. Now, even the gods were shrouded in the light of the Dragon King. They might even become the Dragon King's subordinates. In the sky, 7 figures listened to the discussions coming from below. Their eyes were cold as they waited. They would make the world tremble again. Time gradually passed and more people gathered around the Divine Kingdom. Everyone was waiting for the members of the Dragon Palace to come out so that they could enter. 7 to 8 hours passed, but the people around did not lose their patience. They were still waiting. As expected of the Divine Kingdom of the 8 wisps of Divine Fire God. There are so many treasures inside. At this moment, the excited voices of the 8-limbed Emo Sha and the others came from the Divine Kingdom. 6 figures slowly appeared at the entrance of the Divine Kingdom. The rest can enter. If they are lucky, they might be able to obtain the method of becoming a god left behind by the god inside. Emo Sha and the others looked at the millions of people gathered around them. They raised their heads slightly and spoke to them. What? The method of becoming a god? The method of becoming a god. Could it be the inheritance of the god's cultivation? At this moment, when everyone heard Emo Sha's words, their faces revealed an excited expression. Their eyes were burning as they stared at the Divine Kingdom. All of you took away all the treasures and resources. You only left behind some cultivation methods. Your Dragon Palace really deserves to be destroyed. Just as everyone was going crazy, a voice suddenly sounded in the sky. When they heard this voice, the faces of the millions of people around them revealed shocked expressions. Some of the gods hidden in the surroundings were also slightly shocked and immediately looked towards the sky. Which reckless thing dares to challenge the dignity of our Dragon Palace? Hearing the words coming from the sky, Ba Qi and the others were stunned and stared at the sky with their blood-red eyes. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace will suppress all of you for a lifetime? Today I will suppress all of you. At this moment, a terrifying flame covered Ba Qi and Ao Xingmu from the sky. The flame was like lava. Boom. In an instant, a pillar of fire rose around the 8-headed demon, sealing them completely. Today I will kill all of you, and then I will destroy your Dragon King. An extremely arrogant voice continued to come from the sky. Oh no. Not good, the opponent is very strong. At this moment, when Ao Xingmu and Ao Qitian sensed the flames around them and the flame lava in the sky, their expressions changed drastically, and a hint of shock appeared in their eyes. Break for me. Ao Qitian let out a furious roar. The blood-red chains wrapped around the sea-pacifying divine needle and directly attacked the sky. Bang! However, when the sea-pacifying divine needle fell into the flame lava, it was actually slowly melted. A flame followed the chains and attacked Ao Qitian. The opponent is very strong. Run. Ao Xingmu saw this scene and immediately shouted with a shocked expression. Run. When the eight-headed spirit and Mo Sha saw this scene, their hearts beat even faster. They let out a sharp sound and fled into the distance. Boom. However, in front of a god who could almost fight against 7 wisps of divine fire, they could not escape at all with their strength. The terrifying flames fell directly on their bodies. Chapter 1989. 1989 Dragon Extermination Palace Operation. Ah, you guys, in the future I will pull your tendons and skin you. Just you wait, ah. In front of the ancient land of the Divine Kingdom, screams of extreme pain could be heard from the area covered by the flames. Roar roar. In the center of the flames, the screams of Ao Qitian and the others could be heard. The millions of people around were completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What was going on? Suddenly, a voice sounded, followed by flames that directly covered the experts of the Dragon Palace. The few godly state experts who had followed the Dragon King to destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Templar Hall screamed in pain. Someone actually attacked the Dragon King's subordinates and the members of the Dragon Palace. Who is it? Oh my god, he killed all the experts of the Dragon Palace with one move. Who is he? Is he a hidden expert of the Lingxiao treasured palace of the Sacred Hall? The millions of people around looked at the sky in shock. Hee, a bunch of dying things. How dare you shout? I can easily kill all of you. The arrogant voice sounded again, and 7 figures slowly appeared in everyone's sight. It's the people from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall. Who's that youth in the middle? How can he be so terrifying? Beside that youth is the strongest person from the Lingxiao treasured palace, the Yuan Kuei god. When the surrounding people saw the figures one by one, shock appeared on their faces. They widened their eyes and looked up in shock. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall are going to take revenge, and it's going to be so fierce. Some people murmured as they watched this scene in shock. Boom. At this moment, the young man in the middle of the sky waved his arm, and the flames below suddenly disappeared. Bang bang bang. The flames disappeared and the corpses fell directly to the ground. 6 corpses, not a single one less. Hiss. Seeing these corpses, everyone had shocked expressions on their faces. I remember that the devil monkey and the plant god were also relatively strong among the Dragon King's subordinates. Apart from that crab, the devil monkey god and the plant god were the strongest. Now they were killed in an instant. Looking at the corpses on the ground, the bodies of millions of people trembled in shock. A young god had actually destroyed 6 powerful subordinates of the Dragon Palace with a wave of his hand. The Dragon King dared to destroy our Lingxiao treasured palace and kill the god of our Lingxiao treasured palace. Within 3 days we will destroy his Dragon Palace and take his head. Yuan Kuei stared coldly at the 6 corpses on the ground with a bloodthirsty look on his face. It's just a small Dragon King. With me I can easily kill him. The young man beside him said indifferently. As he spoke, he waved his arm, and the interspatial rings on Ao Qitian's and the others' bodies were directly put into his bag. Let's go. The corners of Yuan Kuei's mouth curled up slightly and he shouted softly. Whoosh. The group of people directly left, leaving behind a group of more than 1 million people with shocked faces. Whoosh. Seeing the powerhouses of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall leave, everyone took a deep breath. Do they really have the strength to fight against the Dragon King? Some people murmured and looked at the corpses on the ground in a daze. Soon, the noise and shaking sound reverberated through the entire sky and soon spread across the entire internet and the entire world. Looking at the corpses of the 6 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace on the internet, everyone widened their eyes in shock. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church still had their trump cards. Perhaps they could really fight against the Dragon King. This was the thought in everyone's mind. But at this moment, Wang Xian, who was strolling around the Dragon Palace with the 2 girls, had already sensed it the moment Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, and the rest died. His expression changed slightly. Ao he. Wang Xian shouted with a solemn face and immediately shouted. Dragon King. Ao he, who was dressed in black armor, flew over and bowed slightly. What happened? Huarkire looked at Wang Xian, whose expression had changed. She asked curiously. Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu and the rest have fallen. Bring the soul returning wood with you. Let's see if they have fallen in the divine kingdom or if it was someone else who did it. Wang Xian gave an order to Ao He. Ao Qitian and the rest are dead. A hint of blood flashed across Ao He's eyes. He nodded immediately. It's the Dragon King. I'll head over immediately. But after he finished speaking, his figure disappeared instantly. Ao Qitian, Uncle Ao Xingmu, and the rest have fallen. Huarkaier also looked at Wang Xian with an awe-inspiring expression. Yes. With their current strength they can fight against a god with 4 wisps of divine fire. They shouldn't have fallen in the divine kingdom. Someone might have made a move. Wang Xian's eyes were flashing with a cold glint. To dare to kill the god of the Dragon Palace and be able to kill Ao Qitian and the other 3, it was definitely not simple. An ordinary god could not do it at all. At the very least he could light up 5 wisps of divine fire and above. Who is courting death? Huarkaier revealed an angry expression when she heard Wang Xian's words. It's all right. We will know the news soon. Wang Xian's eyes were gleaming coldly. He wanted to see who was the one who made the move. We will deal with the top-notch experts under the Dragon King. The rest will be left to you. You have seen our strength. This is your last chance. However, at this moment, the black-robed figure appeared once again at the location of the True Dragon Union. He spoke to the 4 true dragon sons of heaven in front of him calmly. If you have the strength to destroy the Dragon King, why did you call for us? A young man looked at the black figure in front of him indifferently and knocked on the table lightly. This is the last chance for the soaring heavens treasured palace and the sacred hall. Even if we are confident, we still have to make sure that there are no mistakes. Joining us is the best choice for all of you. I don't think that all of you want to become external members of the Dragon Palace, hee. Black Robe's mocking voice sounded. The 4 from the sacred True Dragon gathering looked at each other with shining eyes. We will give you an answer tomorrow. The 4 true dragon sons of heaven said lightly. We welcome all of you to the sacred hall tomorrow. A smile appeared on the black-robed middle-aged man's face and disappeared instantly. This is an opportunity for us. Watching the black-robed middle-aged man leave, a young man looked at the other 3. The conditions given by the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall are not bad. They can't let us become external members of the Dragon Palace. This Dragon King is really laughable. A young man said coldly. It is indeed laughable. As the son of heaven of a true dragon who did not ignite the divine fire, he still wants us to bow down to him. He is extremely stupid. Another youth said coldly. The 4 of them conversed and had already made a decision in their hearts. Soon, in less than 5 hours, the gods received invitations from the Saint Hall and the Lingxiao Treasured Palace again. This time, when they saw that they could easily kill the experts under the Dragon King, the gods began to move. Chapter 1990. 1990 and 1990 the gods united. Dragon King, I have received news that it was the powerhouses from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church who destroyed Ao Qitian and the rest. Furthermore, they once declared that they would destroy our Dragon Palace within 3 days. Dragon King, do you want me to go to the Holy Church and destroy them immediately? As night fell, Ao Crab returned from the Dragon Palace in the depths of the ocean to report. Is it the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church? Was it Yuan Kuei who did it? Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne in front of the Dragon King Palace and looked down as he asked. Below, the subordinates of the Dragon Palace and the godly state experts were standing respectfully below. No, it was a young god. At that time, that young man killed Ao Qitian's leaders with just 1 move. That young god should be more powerful than Yuan Kuei. According to my guess, the other party must have ignited at least 6 wisps of divine fire or even more. Ao he reported with a cold expression. Dragon King, as long as you give the order, we will head to the Sacred Hall immediately and destroy them completely. Prime Minister Gue immediately requested. Since they are courting death, we will fulfill their wish. Wang Xian's eyes were flashing with a cold glint. He had initially thought that after the arrival of the Dragon Palace, they would be completely exterminated. However, he did not expect that the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church would have such strong people. Since that was the case, he would not spare any of them. Wang Xian stood up slowly and swept his gaze across the subordinates of the Dragon Palace. After killing more than 20 strong people from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church, and obtaining a bunch of fruits after the upgrade of the Dragon Palace, the Dragon Palace had an additional 10 wild dragon species. Apart from that, Duan Jingming and the former clan leader of the Firehammer clan had also ignited the divine fire. After Ao Crab had become the devouring dragon, his entire body had undergone a huge change. At the same time he had awakened the darkness attribute. After devouring more than a dozen divine kingdoms, he had already ignited 6 wisps of divine fire. With Ao Crab's current strength he could definitely fight 2 levels above Wang Xian. His strength was still much stronger than Wang Xian. Regardless of whether it was the god with 6 wisps of divine fire or the god with 7 wisps of divine fire, they were all going to die this time. Master, Xiao Ran is here to pay his respects. At this moment Xiao Ran's voice suddenly came from outside. Ha! Wang Xian looked at the sky and gestured to Prime Minister Gue. Prime Minister Jiui nodded and immediately flew out to bring Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei and another young man over. Damn, is this the Dragon Palace? It's too domineering. The young man following Xiao Ran looked around in shock. When he entered the Dragon King Palace, his heart trembled slightly. He looked at the Dragon King on the huge dragon throne and the ancestral tree behind the dragon throne. He then looked at the people in the Dragon King Palace. When he felt the terrifying pressure from Ao Crab, Ao Yao and Ao Jian, his face changed slightly. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. At the same time he suddenly felt extremely fortunate. Fortunately, I made a wise choice. The Dragon King's subordinates are far more than what they appear on the surface. If you say the last time when the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church were destroyed, the Dragon King seemed to have said that all the powerful figures of the Dragon Palace were here. Now it seems that at most half of them went last time. Dragon King, you're really too shameless. He kept complaining in his heart, but he forced a smile on his face. He kept nodding at Prime Minister Ao Crab Turtle and the others in a flattering manner. Master. Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei looked around and were equally shocked. They bowed to Wang Xian. Xiao Ran, what's the matter? Wang Xian looked at them in puzzlement. Master, this is the god of the divine peak of the Huashan celestial race. He told me some news about the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church just now. I will inform Master immediately. Xiao Ran pointed at the young man beside him and said to Wang Xian. Hello, Dragon King. Shen Feng bowed to Wang Xian with a smile on his face. It's you. What's the matter? Wang Xian was naturally very familiar with the young man below and asked indifferently. This Dragon King. Shen Feng smiled and said, recently some powerhouses from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church have come to look for me. They want me to join them to deal with you, Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. Of course I, Shen Feng, will not join them, so I rejected them decisively. Just now they invited me again and said that many gods have joined them and are ready to destroy you, Dragon King of the Dragon Palace, in 3 days. At that time I said that I would think about it. Now I came to report to you immediately. Speaking of which, I, Shen Feng, have never admired anyone in my life except you, Dragon King. You have a heroic figure. To be able to reach this stage on this lawless earth, I, the divine peak, am practically prostrating myself. All this while I, the divine peak, have wanted to follow you, Dragon King. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance. As he talked about the information one by one, he started to spout non-stop. What did he mean by, I look up to you like a torrential river? All right. Wang Xian interrupted this fellow's series of flattery and shook his head speechlessly. When Shen Feng heard his words, he smiled and shut his mouth. Wang Xian slowly closed his eyes and sensed the information of the true dragon son of heaven one by one. Looks like they are all courting death. As Wang Xian sensed the information one by one, a cold expression appeared on his face. He didn't feel the messages of the true dragon son of heaven all the time. 9 of the true dragon son of heaven and 1 of the true dragon son of heaven were killed by Wang Xian. There were still 8 of them left. Among them, when Wang Xian ignited the divine fire on the Transcendence continent, the demonic dragon son of heaven and the earth son of heaven charged into the vast starry sky. At that time Wang Xian couldn't sense them because they were too far away. Therefore he couldn't stop them from leaving. When he returned to Earth, the 2 of them were already in the vast starry sky. For this reason Wang Xian hesitated for a moment and didn't call them back. It could be considered as leaving a seed behind. There were also 6 true dragon sons of heaven. They were all on Earth and had already accepted the invitation from the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. It shouldn't be just the 6 true dragon sons of heaven who joined the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. The other nearly 10 gods should have joined too. I originally wanted to subdue them. This is good too. I'll turn them all into resources. The corners of Wang Xian's mouth curled up slightly. His eyes revealed a sinister look. We'll wait here for them to attack us. It just so happens that everything that needs to be cleaned up has been cleaned up. Wang Xian sat down slowly. He still didn't know how many gods had joined the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church. If he were to go over, he would instead alert the enemy. Since that was the case, they would just treat it as them coming. Destroy the Dragon Palace within 3 days. He was waiting for them here. At the lower position, Xinfeng could not help but shiver when he saw the expression on Wang Xian's face. What bad idea does this Dragon King have? He is really bad. Chapter 1991. 1991 World 1991 focused on the first wave of attacks. What's going on? It's been more than 10 hours and there's still no movement from the Dragon King? Could it be that he's afraid of that powerhouse? When the Dragon King led a group of powerhouses to attack the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, he said that this was all of his strength. And today, all the powerhouses killed by the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall are top-notch powerhouses under the Dragon King. The Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall dare to take revenge on the Dragon King at this time. They dare to say that they want to kill the Dragon King within 3 days. They definitely have the confidence. Even the Dragon King might be afraid of them. 6 gods were killed in an instant, and all of them are the elites under the Dragon King. This time the Dragon King might really be doomed. After all, they are the gods that descended back then. They still have many incredible trump cards. It had been more than 10 hours since Ao Qiqian and the others were killed, and the entire internet was in an uproar. Even in the middle of the night, there were still hundreds of millions of people discussing the Dragon King and the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Sacred Hall. The Dragon King did not make any sound for more than 10 hours after the powerful experts of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Sacred Hall were killed, which made many people think that the Dragon King might be afraid of the other party's strength. It made sense. The other party had killed 6 top-tier gods of the Dragon Palace in one move. The only one who could fight against that terrifying young god was probably the Dragon King's crab subordinate. However, it was still unknown whether that crab god was a match for that young god. The Dragon Palace was completely silent. There was no movement at all, which made many people guess all kinds of possibilities. Lord Luke Owen, Lord Yuan Kuei, Lord Scarlet Sun, a god has arrived. The night passed quickly. The sun rose and shone on the Holy Church. The entire Holy Church was emitting a bright divine light. Inside the Holy Church, a middle-aged man respectfully entered and reported. Invite that person in. Luke Owen heard his subordinate's report, and the corners of his mouth slightly curled up as he said to him, "Yes, sir." The middle-aged man nodded. Very quickly, a middle-aged man slowly walked in. The middle-aged man carried a large golden saber on his back, and his entire person gave off a terrifying aura. Welcome this brother to join our Holy Church and the soaring heavens treasured palace. Yuan Kuei and the others stood up with smiles on their faces as they spoke to the middle-aged man. Remember your conditions. The middle-aged man looked at them and said indifferently, "Don't worry. We can swear a blood oath and make a contract. Even the lords of our boundless star field can guarantee it." Yuan Kuei nodded at the middle-aged man. "Please sit down, brother. We'll wait for the others." Luke Owen had a trace of a smile on his face as he gestured to the middle-aged man. "All right, Dragon King, damn it." The middle-aged man nodded and coldly said a few words before sitting down at the side. Soon, in less than half an hour, more gods arrived. In the next 5 hours, more and more gods arrived one after another. Even the Son of Heaven of the true dragon arrived. "Sorry we're late." Near noon a figure walked in. Seeing the 4 of them enter, everyone in the sacred hall looked at them. "Haha, welcome the 4 true dragon sons of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering. With you here, it'll be easy for us to kill the Dragon King this time." Yuan Kuei saw them walk over and a smile appeared in his eyes. Almost all the gods had come. As for the 1 or 2 that were missing, they didn't care if they came or not. It's easy to kill the Dragon King. I can kill him in 10 moves. However, I still have to hand over the crab under the Dragon King to you." The 4 true dragon sons of heaven swept their eyes over everyone in the room. Apart from the 4 of them, there were 7 gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall, and 10 of them had joined in. Altogether there were 21 gods. Compared to the previous powers of the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace, it was slightly less. However, when their gazes landed on the youth who was playing with the fire god Pearl in the middle, they felt confident. To be able to kill 6 top-tier gods of the Dragon King in one move, his strength was enough to resist or even kill the crab. Apart from him, there was also Yuan Kuei. Top-tier strength was enough. Not to mention, including the 4 true dragon sons of heaven, there were a total of 6 true dragon sons of heaven. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to join our Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall. Congratulations on making the right choice. I can say this. Even without you, with my strength, I can still destroy the Dragon King. Seeing everyone arrive, Jianghu slowly stood up. At the same time, a terrifying pressure enveloped the entire room. At this moment, when all the gods felt Jianghu's pressure, their expressions changed. 6 wisps of divine fire. No, it's higher than 6 wisps of divine fire. The middle-aged man with the golden saber on his back narrowed his eyes as he stared at Jianghu in shock. With your strength, you should be able to fight against a god with 7 wisps of divine fire, right? A true dragon son of heaven felt his strength and revealed a solemn expression. This strength was indeed terrifying. Some of the people present who did not lose their strength were only SOSO. The Dragon King's strongest subordinate is that crab creature. We have fought with it before. The Scarlet Sun God can fight against ordinary 6 wisps of divine fire. Yuan Kuei's lips curled up slightly when he saw everyone's shocked expression as he said indifferently, "I have the confidence to kill that ugly beast in 5 minutes at most." Scarlet Sun said with confidence. We believe in the strength of the Scarlet Sun God. The Dragon King has a total of 28 godly state experts. Even if we add in the 2 golden lions that he has just subdued, there are only 30 of them. Yesterday we killed 6 of them. There are still 24 of them. In the 5 minutes that the Scarlet Sun God fought against the crab, we shouldn't have any problems fighting against the Dragon King and his group, right? Luke Owen's gaze swept across everyone around him as he said, "I really didn't expect to gather 6 true dragon sons of heaven today. After you killed the 6 subordinates of the Dragon King yesterday, I think that just the 6 of us will be able to suppress the rest of the Dragon King's subordinates." A true dragon son of heaven indifferently swept his gaze over the 4 true dragon association members and the other true dragon son of heaven, revealing a strong expression of confidence. This Dragon King is very annoying. He actually stupidly tried to recruit us as external members of the Dragon Palace. How pitiful, how laughable. A true dragon son of heaven from the sacred true dragon gathering smiled. "When do we act? Let's make a deal first. All the resources in the Dragon Palace belong to us." A god took out a long sword and lightly wiped it as he asked indifferently, "Do it now. Don't worry everyone. We only want the divine kingdom on this planet. The treasures in the Dragon Palace belong to you." The gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall stood up one by one, their eyes flashing with cold killing intent. "Haha, then let's go kill that arrogant Dragon King." Chapter 1992. 1992 World 1992 focused the first wave of attacks. Boom boom boom. 21 figures in the sacred hall released terrifying auras as they floated in the air. With a youth dressed in a fiery red robe as the leader, Yuan Kuei and the other true dragon sons of heaven followed by his side. They all looked towards the direction of the ocean. "Let's go, this time we'll let the entire world know the power and majesty of our soaring sky treasured palace and the sacred hall." Yuan Kuei's lips curled up slightly, and a cold expression appeared on his face. "This time, I'm going to rip off the Dragon King's dragon tendon. I'm going to use his body to make a throne to take revenge." The faces of the several gods of the sacred hall and the Lingxiao treasured palace were filled with malevolence. Bus. The 21 gods moved and immediately flew toward the ocean. In less than 5 minutes, the 21 gods arrived about 100,000 meters in front of the dragon palace. They stared ahead with murderous intent. What a huge dragon palace, it actually gives off such power. Yuan Kuei and the other gods looked through the ocean and stared at the huge and towering dragon palace at the bottom of the ocean. A hint of surprise appeared on their faces. This Dragon King must have obtained a powerful inheritance. Otherwise, it would be impossible for a small earthling to reach this stage in just a dozen years. Now, I even wonder if this Dragon King has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. A true dragon son of heaven stared at the dragon palace below, his eyes shining. It's really possible. However, he has obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord and hasn't lit the divine fire yet. This is a bit of trash. It shouldn't be the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. If he obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord, he would be even more powerful. An eternal God Lord can shock an entire region. Several figures were talking. Alright, who cares what inheritance he obtained? I'll go and destroy them now. Jianghu stared at the dragon palace and said confidently. Wait everyone, don't worry. You don't need to attack in the first round. Yuan Kuei waved at Jianghu and said indifferently. The first round? The gods looked at Yuan Kuei in surprise, and even Jianghu looked at him in puzzlement. Everyone just wait and see. Since the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have decided to kill the Dragon King today, we must be 100% sure that we will unleash all of our strength and trump cards. A hint of madness flashed in Yuan Kuei's eyes. As he spoke, he slowly took a few steps forward. Dragon King, destroy my Lingxiao treasured palace and kill the god of my Lingxiao treasured palace. Today will be the day of your death. Next year, today will be the day of your death. Yuan Kuei stared in the direction of the dragon palace and let out an angry roar. This angry roar resounded throughout the entire earth. His voice could be heard from every corner of the earth. At this moment, it was as if the entire world had fallen silent. Whoosh! Immediately after, the world went into an uproar. What's going on? Did the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall seek revenge on the Dragon King? So fast? They destroyed 6 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace yesterday, and now they're going to cover the entire Dragon Palace. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are so confident. Hiss, the Dragon Palace just landed on the ocean yesterday, and now the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall are fighting. Everyone was shocked when they heard this voice. Especially in the cities close to the ocean, the experts immediately flew to the seaside. Some of them were bold enough to fly into the ocean. They wanted to watch this vast battle. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, at this moment, everyone in the seaside city suddenly heard a whistling sound. The sound was somewhat similar to a rocket launch. Oh my god, look at the sky, that's. Suddenly, an extremely shocking sound came from below. An old man looked at the sky with a face full of shock. Bomb weapons, it's a bomb weapon, and it's even a nuclear weapon that has been modified by a special energy. Yes. Back when the gods descended, all the bomb weapons were taken away by them. It's said that someone has added the modification of nuclear weapons, which can make the power of the bomb weapons even more terrifying. How many weapons are these? If these weapons were to be thrown on Earth, they could destroy the entire Earth. At the seaside, everyone raised their heads and looked at this scene in shock. Terrifying weapons flew through the sky. There were at least 1,000 of them heading towards the Ocean Dragon Palace. Weapons washing the earth. Shocking. Shocking. Someone once said that as the most powerful weapon on Earth, its attack power is comparable to that of a god. Even if it's only comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god, these thousands of weapons. Some people murmured. No one had expected that the Lingxiao treasured palace would have such a terrifying weapon. This is the most powerful weapon on Earth? At this moment, the gods around 100,000 meters away from the Dragon Palace were also surprised when they saw Tan Wu flying toward them. That's right. After being modified with demigod-level metal materials, it's even more powerful. Tan Wu whistled in the sky while Yuan Kuei watched the scene with a smile on his face. Although this planet is very weak, it has invented a weapon that's quite powerful. It can be used as the first wave of attack against the Dragon Palace. He continued to speak as he looked indifferently at the bullets that were about to land on the Dragon Palace. It's about to begin. Suddenly, his voice was filled with excitement as a lightning shield appeared in front of him to block the bullets. The first wave of attacks was the bullets. The hearts of the surrounding gods trembled as they stared intently at the bullets. More than 1,000 bullets were about to land on the Dragon Palace. Dragon King, the people from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church are here. I didn't expect them to have so many bullets. The power of the bullets is comparable to the attack of a wisp of divine fire god. The power of thousands of bullets attacking at the same time is not small either. At this moment in the Dragon Palace, when all the gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church arrived, the scouts of the Dragon Palace had already discovered them. However, to the surprise of Wang Xian and Prime Minister Gui, the first round of attack from the other party was actually the Danwu. Thousands of Danwu were raining down on them. Without dodging, a divine kingdom could be directly destroyed. They really used all their strength. Wang Xian looked at the Danwu that was raining down on them from above. A cold expression appeared on his face. Dragon King, with the defense of the Dragon Palace, these bullets won't be able to touch us at all. Prime Minister Gui raised his head and looked at them indifferently. I know. However, since the upgrade of the Dragon Palace, I haven't tested the offensive power of these bullets. Let's test them out. A faint smile appeared on Wang Xian's face. A level 6 Dragon Palace could withstand attacks below the level of Eternal Lord. Similarly, a level 6 Dragon Palace also had offensive means. Although the attack could not be compared to the defense, Wang Xian wanted to take a look. Dragon Palace attack. He shouted softly. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, dragon roars sounded from within the Dragon Palace. Chapter 1993. 1993 Doomsday of the Gods. Dragon Palace attack. Roar, roar, roar. With a thought from Wang Xian, the attack formation of the Dragon Palace was activated instantly. Earth-shattering dragon roars came from the Dragon Palace at the bottom of the sea and charged upwards. 9 dragon shadows formed by attributes charged out of the Dragon Palace instantly and out of the sea. Dan Wu is about to land on the Dragon Palace. There are thousands of them. There are thousands of them. What would happen if all of them exploded? At this moment, some of the experts who had rushed over were shocked when they saw the bullets flying toward the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace was going to be destroyed. Some thoughts rose in his mind. Yuan Kuei and the other gods were watching this scene from a distance of 100,000 meters away with smiles on their faces. However, when the majestic roars of dragons came from the bottom of the sea, the faces of the gods from the Lingxiao treasured palace, the sacred hall, and the others turned solemn. Voila! Roar! 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 9 enormous divine dragons rushed out of the sea and roared at the bullet weapons one after another. 9 divine dragons, 9 different colors. Each divine dragon exuded a terrifying majesty. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the Danwu in the sky exploded under the impact of the 9 divine dragons. Mushroom clouds surged upwards, rolling upwards. The entire world shook. Roar, roar, roar. However, at this moment, the bodies of the divine dragons emitted a radiance of various attributes. The radiance completely blocked the aftershocks of the explosion. One after another, the divine dragons suddenly opened their huge mouths and devoured the exploding clouds. This scene caused everyone's faces to be filled with shock. The divine dragons formed from the 9 attributes were at the center of the explosion. Not only were they not shattered, but they were also rolling in the mushroom clouds. The divine dragons opened their mouths and quickly devoured the harmful substances in the exploding clouds. At this moment, the experts who had taken the risk to come here to watch were completely dumbfounded. The 9 dragons wreaked havoc at the center of the explosion, covering thousands of kilometers of the explosion. Instead, it seemed to have become a playground for the 9 dragons. This is an array formation. The 9 dragons were formed by an array formation. I didn't expect that the Dragon King would have such an array formation. It's indeed not simple. It seems that the Dragon King is the legendary son of heaven of the first true dragon. Furthermore, the Dragon King obtained many more treasures than the other son of heaven of the other true dragons. At this moment, the gods of the Lingxiao treasured palace in the sky were shocked when they saw this scene. They stared at the 9 divine dragons formed by the array formation with solemn expressions. Things had gone beyond their expectations. This formation is very strong, but that's all it is. Yang felt the power of the 9 divine dragons and a cold glint appeared in his eyes. He slowly flew forward. When the gods saw him flying forward, they immediately followed closely behind him. So many people are seeking death. Following the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church won't end well. At this moment at the bottom of the sea, Wang Xian led a group of disciples of the Dragon Palace and slowly surfaced from the water. Wang Xian, who was wearing a crown and sitting on the dragon throne, stared coldly at the 21 gods in front of him. Behind him, more than 10,000 disciples of the Dragon Palace stood at the back with weapons in their hands. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at them. Dragon King. When he saw the Dragon King and the rest taking the initiative to come out, Yuan Kuei's eyes were filled with killing intent. They looked at the majestic Dragon King who was sitting on the dragon throne and scanned the members of the Dragon Palace behind Wang Xian. I really want to know what inheritance your Dragon King has obtained. He actually has so many powerful subordinates. Qi Yang's gaze swept across the tens of thousands of members of the Dragon Palace. His face was also filled with astonishment. The strength of an ordinary high-level demigod was not something that an ordinary demigod could compare with. It seems like I can't let you live, Qi Yang said coldly. If the Dragon King was given a few more years, the strength of the Dragon Palace would be even stronger. You can't let me live. Wang Xian's gaze landed on Qi Yang who was in the middle. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Dragon King, how dare you kill Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu and the rest? Let me kill him. Ao Crab looked at Qi Yang, his eyes full of killing intent. Bone spikes extended from his arms. You are that crab. TSK, I will kill you within 5 minutes today. Dragon Palace, prepare to die, ha ha ha. Boom. A carefree laughter came out of Qi Yang's mouth, and a terrifying flame rose. In an instant, the seawater below him evaporated instantly. The seawater below him was about 100 meters lower than the other locations. His imposing manner was completely locked onto Ao Crab. His face was filled with a smile. It was as if he didn't put Ao Crab in his eyes at all. He was very clear about Ao Crab's strength. It was also because he was clear that he had strong confidence. Ao Crab, kill him. Wang Xian ordered Ao Crab indifferently. It's the Dragon King. Ao Crab stared at Qi Yang, who was emitting flames all over his body. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Haha, 5 minutes? All of you only need to hold on for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes I will kill this fellow. Then I will come and destroy the Dragon King and the rest. Qi Yang's body moved, and he flew directly hundreds of thousands of meters into the air. Boom. He waved his arm and a terrifying spear attacked Ao Crab. Dragon King, give me 1 minute. Ao Crab stared at Qi Yang, who was extremely arrogant and did not put him in his eyes, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. His body flickered. Boom. The flaming spear instantly collapsed. Crash. Ao Crab's waist shook, and a huge wing appeared on his back. Stupid thing. He roared at Qi Yang coldly. Haha, you are the stupid one. Today I will let all of you witness my full strength. Qi Yang roared with excitement. Boom, boom, boom. The entire sky was instantly covered by flames, completely forming a fire domain. In the fire domain, the fire giants stared at Ao Qi coldly as if they were alive. Dragon King, I wonder if you have any more subordinates who can fight with me. Yuan Kuei saw that Qi Yang was restraining the strongest subordinate of the Dragon King. He stared at Wang Xian coldly and said with a smile. Don't be so arrogant. Ao Qi slowly took a few steps forward. Around him, the 9 members who had upgraded to the Berserk Dragon Seed followed behind him. After Ao Qi killed the gods of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall, he transformed into a Berserk Dragon with his divine spark. Unlike Ao Qitian's body, Ao Qi's blood-red armor covered his entire body. He had a blood-red hammer in one hand and a blood-red spear in the other. At his waist, a blood-red chain wrapped around him. Similar to Ao Qitian, there was an eye between his brows. The blood-red Goyu was in the middle of his pupils. 10 mad dragons locked their cold eyes on Yuan Kuei. Chapter 1994. 1994. In the 1994 Apocalypse of the Gods. Haha, Dragon King, your 10 subordinates have locked onto me. Alright. Today, let me experience the strength of your 10 subordinates. Yuan Kuei saw Ao Qi and the others exuding a powerful aura, and his face revealed an excited expression. Even if the sudden appearance of these 10 powerful creatures was beyond his expectations, he could clearly sense that the other party's strength was definitely inferior to his. This meant that the Dragon King only had that crab as a trump card. Seal. Aochi's entire body emitted an incomparably violent aura that belonged to the berserk dragon species. His body shook and blood-red chains directly attacked Yuan Kuei. Haha, come and fight. Today I will take your heads one by one. Yuan Kuei's figure moved and he directly flew into the sky, his body covered in dense lightning. TSK Dragon King. As the first person to obtain a dragon soul, you are known as the head of the true dragon. Now I want to experience it. I don't know if you have condensed a divine dragon body. Roar roar roar. Come Dragon King, let me give you some pointers. A young man from the True Dragon Gathering glanced at Yuan Kuei, Qi Yang and the others. His body moved and he stepped forward. At the same time he raised his head and roared as his body underwent a huge change. Roar roar. A golden dragon that was 3,000 to 4,000 meters in size appeared in front of everyone. Golden scales and a majestic dragon head stared at the Dragon King. Haha, the head of a true dragon? Then let the rest of us meet the so-called head of a true dragon today. Behind them, the members of the sacred True Dragon Gathering also moved. Roar roar roar. Roar roar roar. Heaven-shaking sounds sounded as 3 terrifying divine dragons floated in the sky. Jie, the 6 of us are enough to kill the Dragon King and the others. Behind them, the other 2 Son of Heaven looked at each other and moved. Roar roar roar. Roar roar. Another 2 dragon roars shook the sky as 6 divine dragons that were 2,000 to 3,000 meters long appeared in the sky above the ocean. Hiss, maybe we don't even need to do anything. 6 true dragon sons of heaven are so powerful and terrifying. Behind them, the last 13 gods looked at the terrifying divine dragons with shock on their faces. They felt that they didn't need to do anything in this battle. Lord Qiang, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the 6 true dragon sons of heaven are enough to destroy the dragon palace. A god from the Lingxiao treasured palace looked excited when he saw this scene. He raised his head slightly and looked at this scene proudly. This is the true dragon son of heaven? The Dragon King is already strong enough. I didn't expect that the true dragon son of heaven isn't weak at all. The Dragon King and his group of top-tier godly state experts are completely restrained. How are they going to fight against the 6 true dragons son of heaven now? This is going to be troublesome. Some of the experts who were more than 100 kilometers away were observing the situation here through formations and weapons. When they saw this scene they took a deep breath. They felt that after the Ling Xiao treasured palace and the Saint Hall recruited a group of true dragons son of heaven this time, their strength was even stronger than when they were at their peak. Dragon King, come and face your death. The group of true dragon sons of heaven hovered in the sky and turned the seas upside down. Their dragon eyes were filled with mockery as they stared at Wang Xian who was sitting on the dragon throne. Among the 6 true dragon sons of heaven, 3 of them had already ignited 2 wisps of divine fire. Even if they had not learned the divine dragon transformation, they could still fight 2 levels higher. This was the strength of the divine dragon body. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to provoke and even mock the Dragon King. This was because, in their opinion, the Dragon King had not ignited the divine fire yet. Without a group of subordinates they could easily kill him. Roar, roar, roar. The 6 divine dragons raised their heads together and let out a deafening dragon roar. The dragon roar was filled with dignity and dominance. Hee hee. Wang Xian looked at them with a faint smile on his face. He slowly stood up from the dragon chair and stared at the 6 divine dragons who were staring at him with disdain. Since you guys are looking for death, I shall grant your wish. As he spoke, his mind moved. We are looking for death, ha. When one of the true dragons son of heaven heard Wang Xian's words, a smile of proof appeared on his face. He opened his mouth and a wave of terrifying dragon breath was condensing. However, his actions came to an abrupt halt. The other 5 figures who were swaying their bodies in the sky suddenly froze. Roar roar roar. No, what's going on? What's going on? Get out of here. All of a sudden, one of the true dragons son of heaven's dragon body was swaying and rolling in the sky. He seemed to have encountered great fear as he roared in horror. Roar roar, who are you? Get out of my body and get lost. The other 2 true dragons son of heaven who had ignited 2 wisps of divine fire also had a look of horror in their eyes as they roared ferociously. As for the other 3 true dragons son of heaven, their bodies were floating in the sky without making any sound. They're just a bunch of chess pieces. Wang Xian looked at the 6 true dragons son of heaven and said indifferently. Roar, roar. Roar. At this moment, the 6 divine dragons suddenly raised their heads and let out a roar toward the sky. Buzz. At this moment, the dragon bodies of the 6 divine dragons trembled violently. They turned around and looked coldly at the dozen or so gods behind them. What's the situation? When the dozen or so gods saw the 6 true dragon sons of heaven suddenly roaring in fear, and when they saw them suddenly turning around and staring at them with murderous intent, the gods behind them were completely dumbfounded. What was going on? With the current strength of Lord Scarlet Sun, Lord Yuan Kuei, and the 6 true dragon sons of heaven, they might not even need to make a move in this battle. What was going on now? Why were the 6 true dragon sons of heaven staring at them like that? Kill them. Right at this moment they heard the Dragon King's voice. Kill? Immediately after, more than a dozen experts with divine might flew out from behind the Dragon King and directly attacked them. True Dragon Son of Heaven, what are you doing? Kill the Dragon King and the others. A god from the sacred hall saw the Dragon King's subordinates attacking and immediately shouted at the 6 true Dragon Son of Heaven. Roar. However, at this moment the 6 divine dragons roared and attacked them. At this moment the gods were completely stunned. What exactly happened? Bang? You, a god who has only ignited 6 wisps of divine fire, dare to say that you can kill me within 5 minutes. Suddenly the sound of a heavy collision could be heard from above. An AO crab with savage wings on its back and an arm filled with sharp thorns stabbed into the Scarlet Sun God's chest and dove down. No, how is this possible? The Scarlet Sun God felt the pain on his body and stared at the AO crab with a blank expression. The 10 or so gods behind him also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. Didn't they say that they would kill the crab in 5 minutes? Why was it only 10 or so seconds? Chapter 1995. 1995, the end of all gods. What is going on? All the gods looked at this scene in astonishment. The 6 true dragon sons of heaven who suddenly attacked them. The Scarlet Sun God whose body was suddenly pierced by the sharp spikes of the Dragon King's subordinates. Especially the Scarlet Sun God. Didn't he just say that he would kill the Dragon King's crab subordinate in 5 minutes? It had only been 10 seconds, but he had already been attacked and injured. Run. At this moment the dozen or so gods didn't hesitate at all. They turned around and fled into the distance. The Scarlet Sun God was the strongest among them. They had relied on him for everything in today's battle. Now he had been defeated so easily. How is this possible? In the air above the Dragon Palace, Yuan Kuei faced Ao Qi and the rest of the Berserk dragon species alone. When he saw that Scarlet Sun had been injured, his face was filled with shock. How is this possible? How can you be my opponent? Get lost. In a daze, his body trembled and terrifying flames shot out from his body toward Ao Crab. Whoosh! The bone wings on Ao Crab's back extended forward, directly blocking the flames that were covering him. Through the bone wings, Ao Crab's blood-red eyes were filled with disdain as he stared at the Scarlet Sun God. With your strength, you still dare to say that you can destroy me in 5 minutes? Ao Crab said to him with a disdainful look, and the sharp thorn in his hand moved slightly. Ah! A sharp pain entered his mind. Looking at Ao Crab who easily blocked his attack, a trace of fear finally appeared on his face. Xingtian Furnace, Divine Kingdom Protection. He gritted his teeth and roared fiercely. Behind him, a huge Divine Kingdom of the Furnace immediately appeared. The Divine Kingdom did not expand but slowly wrapped around his body. A powerful force rushed toward Ao Crab. He wanted to get rid of Ao Crab's attack. You still want to resist? Ao Crab stared at him, his mouth split open in a sinister smile. At the same time he pulled out the bone spike that had pierced into the Scarlet Sun God's body, his arms slightly curled up. Escape. At this moment, seeing the bone spike being pulled away from his chest, the Scarlet Sun God hurriedly dodged to the side in fear. However, at this moment he saw Ao Crab's arm, which was filled with sharp spikes, slightly curled up in front of him. Roar! Roar! A terrifying and ferocious dragon roar suddenly came from his arm. Under his shocked gaze, the arm expanded at a terrifying speed. The position of the finger turned into an incomparably ferocious monster. The head of the monster was somewhat like that of a divine dragon, but it was much more ferocious and terrifying than a divine dragon. It emitted an evil aura. Devouring Dragon. At this moment, Ao Crab's emotionless voice rang out, and the terrifying and ferocious dragon head directly attacked the Scarlet Sun God. Heaven-fusing furnace. When the Scarlet Sun God saw this terrifying scene, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately roared out. The divine kingdom behind him was like a world furnace, directly melting towards the devouring dragon head. Roar! However, just as they were about to clash, the terrifying dragon head bit down on the divine kingdom's furnace. Ka. The sounds of shattering rang out, and the Scarlet Sun God's expression changed, as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. His face was filled with shock. No, how can you be so strong? How can you be so strong? Not long ago you were only equivalent to 6 wisps of divine fire, how can that be? The threat of death shrouded the god of Scarlet Yang. His face was filled with despair. Looking at his divine kingdom being devoured piece by piece, his entire body was trembling. Roar! The dragon head of the devouring dragon spewed out a terrifying dark light and landed directly on his body. The terrifying power penetrated through his divine kingdom and landed directly on his body. Scarlet Yang widened his eyes. His face was filled with unwillingness as he landed heavily on the ground below. Wang Xian raised his head slightly and looked at the god of Qiyang who was landing on his side. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. He waved his arm and the dying Qiyang landed directly on Wang Xian's side. Bang! When he landed in front of Wang Xian, an invisible barrier caused his body to crash heavily onto the ground. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Both of his hands were trembling as he held onto the spot on his chest. If you want to destroy me, you might not be strong enough. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice rang in his ears. Qiyang turned his head with difficulty. He looked at Wang Xian in a daze. Please don't kill me. I'm willing to submit to you. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he spoke with great difficulty. You're not qualified. Wang Xian looked at him and flicked his finger. A destructive force entered his body instantly and wreaked havoc on the life force in his body. Buzz. A mournful sound of heaven and earth rang out. A cloud of fire hung in the sky. A god of fire had fallen. Lord Qiang is dead. Lord Qiang is dead. At the back, a group of gods who were about to escape had sensed the death of Qiang. They shouted in fear. In less than a minute, the invincible Scarlet Sun God was killed. This was a god that was comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire. Now he was easily killed by the Dragon King's subordinates. Run now. Run into the starry sky. At this moment, more than 10 gods' faces were filled with panic. It was too terrifying. They didn't dare to stay on Earth any longer and all of them tried their best to escape into the starry sky. Even if they didn't have the starry sky map, even if they had a slim chance of survival, it was still safer than staying on Earth. It's too late to escape. The godly state experts of the Dragon Palace attacked. The 6 divine dragons swayed their huge bodies and blocked in front of them. No, you bunch of true dragon sons of heaven, you actually betrayed us. What's going on? Did the 6 true dragon sons of heaven betray us, or? Panic and despair appeared on the gods' faces. At first, they thought that the Dragon King would be killed without their help. Now, it was the Dragon King who hadn't made a move. How can this be? Is the heaven going to destroy the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall? Yuan Kuei also noticed Qi Yang's death. His face was gloomy and his breathing was hurried. Why were the subordinates of the Dragon King so invincible? Even in the endless star field, such strength was a very powerful force. Only Master and the others can kill the Dragon King. Only Master and the others can suppress the Dragon King. Yuan Kuei's mind kept running wild. Suddenly, he felt a gaze that made his scalp tingle as he looked in his direction. His figure immediately retreated, and when he raised his head, he met Ao Crab's gaze. At this moment he saw death. Chapter 1996. 1996 and 1996, the skyscraping holy church was no more. Go. Yuan Kuei looked at Ao Xia's cold and disdainful eyes and couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. How could he defend against an expert who could kill the Scarlet Sun God in less than a minute? He couldn't defend at all. Roar. Roar. At this moment, Ao Xia waved his arm, and the arm that had transformed into a ferocious devouring dragon attacked Yuan Kuei directly. No, I'm not resigned. I'm actually going to die on a small planet. At this moment, feeling the fatal threat of death, he roared out in despair and unwillingness. Yuan Kuei wanted to escape, but Ao Qi and the other 10 people were blocking him. Not to mention, even without them blocking him, Ao Crab's attack was still not something he could dodge. The difference was too great. Ah! The devouring dragon's head bit his body, causing him to let out a desperate scream. With the death of the Scarlet Sun God and Yuan Kuei's death, the dozen or so gods surrounded by the divine dragons and members of the Dragon Palace completely collapsed at this moment. Even a god that was almost comparable to 7 wisps of divine fire was easily killed by the Dragon King and the others, not to mention their group of 1, 2, or at most 3 wisps of divine fire gods. Dragon King, I submit. I submit. Please don't kill me. I am willing to become an external member of the Dragon Palace. I am willing to submit. The gods did not want to die. It was not easy for them to be resurrected. After experiencing death, they were filled with fear towards death. But unfortunately, no. Soon desperate voices rang out. Above the Dragon Palace, the wails of heaven and earth rang out continuously. When the 15th sorrowful cry of heaven and earth fell, the entire world regained a trace of tranquility. Around them, the death of the water elemental god rained down. The death of the wind elemental god caused the winds to howl in all directions. The entire space appeared unusually chaotic. Aohi, bring some people to the Holy Church and kill all the survivors of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church. Wang Xian ordered Aohi directly. It's the Dragon King. Aohi nodded and looked at Ao Qi's 10 members. Let's go. Ao Qi nodded and followed behind Aohi as they flew towards the Holy Church. This is an easy massacre. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church were killed so easily. Who would have thought that it would end so quickly? The nuclear weapons were easily blocked by the Dragon Palace, and the one who killed the 6 top gods of the Dragon Palace was killed so easily. When everyone thought that the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall could compete with the Dragon Palace, who would have thought that it would end up like this? This time, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Sacred Hall have completely disappeared from Earth. All the forces that had descended have fallen. Hundreds of kilometers away, all the figures saw this scene, and their faces were filled with shock and respect. After this battle, the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King would completely establish their throne. A high throne. The cries of the heavens and the earth should be the beautiful rhythm of the Dragon King's death. Lord, the Scarlet Young Fire God Yuan Kuei and the true Dragon Sons of Heaven destroyed the Dragon Palace within our expectations. Luke Owen stood in the sky above the sacred palace and looked in the direction of the Ocean Dragon Palace with a smile on his face. Every mournful cry made his smile even wider. After destroying the Dragon Palace, no one on Earth will be able to fight against us. Luke Owen said with a smile. Unfortunately, we can't do as you wish. At this moment, a cold voice entered their ears. At this moment, Luke Owen and a few other gods who had been resurrected by dripping blood had a huge change in expression. They hurriedly looked up into the sky. You, how did you get here? How is this possible? You. When they saw Ao Qi and the others, their pupils constricted slightly, and their foreheads were instantly filled with cold sweat. They stuttered and their expressions changed drastically. They're all dead. You guys should go and accompany them. From now on, the Temple of Heaven will completely disappear. Ao Qi said indifferently. He raised the thunder hammer in his hand, and the blood-red lightning was brewing on it. No, how is this possible? With Qi Yang and the other's strength. Luke Owen's face was full of shock. He hurriedly hid into the temple. Crackle. Ah. The 2 figures beside him could not dodge in time. They were struck by lightning in an instant, and their bodies fell to the ground. Do you think that this sanctuary can still protect you? Ao Crab looked at the sanctuary that was covered by a powerful array formation, and a cold expression appeared on his face. He moved slightly and an earthy black tail appeared behind him. The tail changed at a terrifying speed. The entire tail was covered in black scales, and there was a terrifying spike on the tail that looked incomparably heavy. Whoosh! Ao Crab waved his tail, and the sharp spike pierced directly towards the array formation. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and the terrifying tail pierced directly into the array formation. No, how is this possible? This is an array formation that can withstand attacks from 8 divine flames and below. How did you suddenly become so strong? When Luke Owen saw that the array formation had been broken, a look of despair appeared on his face. At this moment he also understood why Scarlet Sun Yuan Kuei and the others had been killed so quickly. Directly breaking the array formation? This was probably something that only the higher-ups of the Soaring Heavens Palace could do, right? Die. Ao Crab stared coldly at Luke Owen inside as his terrifying tail stirred. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of collapse could be heard. The sound of screams could be heard from inside. Take all the useful materials away and then clean this place up, Ao Chi said to the people beside him. He held a long spear in his hand and threw it down directly. Rumble. The entire holy church occupied an area of 700 to 800 kilometers. Sacred mountains and palaces. But soon the enormous holy church began to collapse bit by bit. The invincible holy church, which had stood tall in the west for more than 10 years, began to collapse. It was just like the Soaring Heavens Palace in the eastern sky. Ao Chi and the others put all the resources in the holy church into their interspatial rings. Half an hour later, the enormous holy church was reduced to ruins. In the surrounding area, everyone was shocked when they saw the huge object collapse. From now on, the Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church will be completely wiped out. There will be no Temple of Heaven and the Holy Church on earth. When the Holy Church collapsed completely, Ao Crab and the others floated in the air. A majestic voice came out of Ao Crab's mouth and resounded throughout the world. Everyone heard it clearly. At this moment, everyone in the world slightly opened their mouths. Especially those disciples who had followed the gods to descend. Their hearts were shaken and their faces were extremely ugly. Chapter 1997. 1997 continued to wander. The Ling Shao treasured palace and the Templar Hall have been completely wiped out. They were so high and mighty that we all worshipped them. Now they have been completely wiped out by the Dragon King. 15 cries of sorrow. This time the fallen gods are not only the last gods of the Ling Shao treasured palace and the Templar Hall, but also the resurrected gods. They are on the wrong side. I thought that the Ling Shao treasured palace and the Templar Hall would be heavily attacked this time, but I didn't expect that in less than an hour, the two forces would be completely wiped off the face of the earth. The Dragon King is too powerful. In the future, even if someone ignited the divine fire, he wouldn't be able to contend with the Dragon King. Can everyone count how many gods have fallen at the hands of the Dragon King now? There are a total of 30 to 40 of them. When everyone heard Ao Crab's voice, their faces were filled with shock. Especially the 15 whales of the heavens and earth just now. Those voices caused the entire world to shake. The high and mighty gods, the gods who had lived for 100,000 years, died one after another. At this time, people thought of the gods that had fallen during this period of time. 90% of them were related to the Dragon King. In total, there were almost 30 to 40 of them. They looked like gods, but the Dragon King and the others had killed 30 to 40 of them. What kind of concept was this? Many people felt that they and the Dragon King were not in the same era. I didn't expect that our Ling Shao treasured palace would be completely destroyed and wiped out. How are we going to return to the boundless star field? The disciples who had followed the Ling Shao treasured palace to descend at that time trembled with despair on their faces. At that time they had made a great decision and had paid a great price to descend here. No one had expected this outcome. Initially they still had a glimmer of hope for the few gods of the Ling Shao treasured palace. Now they were in complete despair. Dragon King, wipe out all the remnants of the Holy Church. At this moment, Ao Chi, and the rest arrived in the Dragon Palace and reported to Wang Xian. Have they been wiped out? How many gods are there in the world now? Wang Xian nodded with a smile and asked Prime Minister Gui. Dragon King, other than that young master from Shinfeng, there is only one god on earth now. Prime Minister Gui reported. Master, that god knows Shinfeng and once expressed his goodwill to me. His words shouldn't be a problem. Xiao Ran said to Wang Xian at this moment. The young master of the celestial race was also standing beside Xiao Ran. At this moment, he was extremely glad that he had made the choice. As expected, Oldine was still more awesome than the Dragon King. Such strength would be considered a considerable force in the former Milky Way galaxy. It's the Dragon King. I'll talk to that god. How about we join the Dragon Palace in the future and become external members? I don't think he will reject us. Shen Feng also spoke up immediately. There's no need. If it's you guys, just join Xiao Ran's Dragon Gate Academy directly. Wang Xian said to Shen Feng. It's the Dragon King. Then we'll join the Dragon Gate Academy. In the future we'll build a powerful God Academy together with brother Xiao Ran. Shen Feng was delighted when he heard Wang Xian's words. He nodded immediately. When Xiao Ran heard his master's arrangements, he exchanged a glance with Ji Lingfei and revealed a smile. If 2 more gods joined the Dragon Gate Academy, their foundations would be comparable to the forces of the gods that descended back then. Dragon King, this is the starry sky chart that we obtained from the Lingxiao treasured palace in the Holy Church. The 2 starry sky charts are identical. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui walked over and handed the 2 starry sky maps to him. Can the pulling formation at the Lingxiao treasured palace still be restored? Wang Xian looked at the starry sky map with a glint in his eyes. Yes, Dragon King. Are we going to bring Earth into the boundless star field? Prime Minister Gui asked Wang Xian. If it's the boundless star field, we are going. As for Earth... Wang Xian pondered for a moment before saying, Xiao Ran, go and inform the world. If most of the people agree to let Earth go to the boundless galaxy, we will enter the boundless galaxy. If they don't want to go, we will leave Earth here. After all, Earth was their hometown. He was not going to make the decision to change the fate of everyone on Earth. If they wanted to enter the boundless galaxy, we could bring Earth there. If they didn't want to go, Wang Xian could also order the Dragon Palace to travel through the starry sky and head to the powerful galaxy. Yes, Master. Xiao Ran nodded. Also, as usual, the Dragon Palace rules the ocean and will not interfere in other matters. Wang Xian stood up slowly and said in the end. Xiao Ran and the rest nodded. They did not stay in the Dragon Palace any longer and flew out. Next, after we revive Ao Qitian and the rest, we will raise the strength of the members of the Dragon Palace. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Gui. This time they had killed 15 gods and all the treasures in the sanctuary. The resources were not as much as the last time. However, there was the corpse of a god with 6 wisps of divine fire. After Ao Qitian and the others recovered, these resources could also increase the number of godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. In the outside world, after a battle that focused on the entire world, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the Holy Church completely disappeared. While many people were discussing, the Dean of the Dragon Gate Academy announced something. Today there would be a vote on the internet. The content of the vote would be whether Earth was willing to go in and head to the boundless star field. When this news spread out, it caused a huge sensation. When the gods brought Earth to the boundless galaxy, it caused a huge panic. With the people's understanding, they gradually calmed down. But even so, facing the unknown galaxy, they were still filled with confusion and didn't know what to do. Now, they were given the right to choose whether or not to enter the galaxy. I didn't expect the Dragon King to let us make a choice. It seems that even if we don't enter the boundless starfield, the Dragon King and the others will go there on their own. I want to go there. According to the gods, that is the starfield for cultivation. The divine sons and goddesses of the various starfield sects compete for glory. Powerful existences can destroy the stars with a wave of their hands. Only by entering the boundless starfield can we have the chance to become such an existence. There are benefits and disadvantages to entering the boundless starfield. If our Earth wants to improve, we must enter the boundless starfield. It proves that Earth has already walked quite a distance. We might as well go there directly. Countless people were discussing on the internet. Some young people of the younger generation wanted to continue traveling on Earth and wanted to venture into unknown starfields. And those disciples who had followed the gods to descend had excited expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. They still had a chance to return to the boundless starfield. Chapter 1998. 1998 on the mutated space locust in the 1998 Divine Tomb. Master, the voting has ended. 80% of the people want to go to the boundless galaxy. Only 20% of them want to stay here. A day later, Xiao Ran passed the results of the online voting to Wang Xian. Most of them still hoped to step into the boundless galaxy. They also wanted to ignite the divine fire and become gods, roaming in the void. Once they became gods, they would have a lifespan of 100,000 years. If they could step into a higher realm, their lifespan would reach 1,000,000. Who didn't want to obtain a longer lifespan? Who didn't want to roam the void and see the races in the universe? Seeing this result, Wang Xian wasn't too surprised. If it was him, he would also choose to enter the boundless galaxy. In that case, Earth will continue to move forward. Wang Xian nodded at Xiao Ran and immediately ordered Prime Minister Gue and the rest to restart the array formation. The array formation was in the dilapidated Lingxiao Palace. After restarting it, as long as they put in spirit stones, they would be able to move forward rapidly. At this speed, they would be able to enter the boundless galaxy in 4 years. It's moving. The planet is moving towards the boundless galaxy. I didn't expect the Dragon King to be so bold. He really dares to go to the boundless galaxy. The Dragon King might not know how powerful the boundless galaxy is. He has killed so many gods in our skyscraping treasured palace and the Holy Church. The great forces of the boundless galaxy will not let him go. At that time he will regret everything he has done. However, we still have to thank the Dragon King. If he really doesn't dare to enter the boundless galaxy, we won't have the chance to return to our hometown. The disciples who had followed the Dragon King to the boundless galaxy sensed that Earth was heading towards the boundless galaxy once again, and their faces were filled with excitement. Earth once again plunged into the vast starry sky. And just like the era that the Dragon King had suppressed before, the Dragon King guarded the land of the sea and didn't care about anything else. The Dragon Gate Academy had become the world's most powerful force, and it was also a force that countless people were fighting to join. Now, there were 4 gods in Dragon Gate Academy. These 4 gods were the only ones other than the Dragon Palace. Since there was only one god in Dragon Gate Academy, it was natural for countless people to rush into it. Now, Dragon Gate Academy had opened 2 more branches. Those who could enter were all elites of the entire world. Even many disciples who came with them also joined Dragon Gate Academy. Time flew by quickly. Earth was wandering and Wang Xian had been staying in the Dragon Palace. In the middle of the time, he returned to the Transcendence continent to check on the group of girls who were cultivating. According to his estimation, the group of girls would be able to ignite the divine fire soon. The entire Dragon Palace fell into silence. In the beginning, 2 divine kingdoms appeared one after another on Earth. It was a pity that after the appearance of the 2 divine kingdoms, no more divine kingdoms appeared. After the 2 little girls ran around the Dragon Palace for a month or 2, they got bored and now stayed under the ancestral tree to cultivate. All the members of the Dragon Palace were in closed-door cultivation. The speed of cultivation for a year was equivalent to cultivating in the outside world for more than 100 years. In just a year, many members of the Dragon Palace had made great breakthroughs. Now, the weakest members of the Dragon Palace were at the demigod rank 8 realm, and half of them had already reached the demigod rank 9 realm. The number of members of the Dragon Palace who had lit the divine fire had reached 25, and the number of those who had the combat strength of the god realm had reached about 40. This strength could be said to be very terrifying. In this 1 year, because of the great power of the Dragon Gate Academy, the entire world was peaceful and there was no large-scale war. Many people entered the divine kingdoms to cultivate, and their strength increased greatly. On Earth, experts at the profound void realm weren't as rare as before. I heard from teacher that it's very difficult for us to become gods. Those gods would need at least 1,000 years to ignite the divine fire. We have the divine kingdoms to cultivate in, and it's also a huge opportunity in the boundless star field. But not everyone has Ding Zhao's opportunity. Ding Zhao has the Dragon King. In just a year, the Dragon King has advanced to the divine realm. If only I could become the Dragon King's disciple. Don't even think about it. It's said that the Dragon King doesn't accept disciples. Even Ding Zhao is only the Dragon King's in-name disciple. If we want to become gods quickly, we have to obtain opportunities in the divine tomb. We've been wandering around here for 2 or 3 days, but we still can't get in. So, it's not just us. Look around you. There are at least tens of millions of people who want to find opportunities. In the North Pole, around the vast divine tomb, cultivators who were dreaming of entering the divine tomb to find opportunities were wandering around. At present, no one had entered the divine tomb in the South Pole. The North Pole was fine, but since the last time the divine tomb was closed, it had never been opened again. This made countless people unwilling. In addition to their current understanding of the divine tomb, millions of people came here every day to seek opportunities. If they could enter, it would be like stepping into the realm of gods for them. Even some teachers of Dragon Gate Academy laughed and said that if anyone could obtain opportunities in the divine tomb, they could ignite the divine fire. This also caused many students of the Dragon Gate Academy to come here in search of an opportunity. Buzz. However, on a certain day the entire divine tomb suddenly trembled, causing the people who were conversing and the surrounding people to be slightly stunned. They hurriedly stared at the divine tomb, their eyes filled with astonishment. What happened? A student of the Dragon Gate Academy's face changed as he stared at the divine tomb in front of him. The towering mountain peaks that formed the divine tomb seemed to have come to life at this moment, continuously emitting light tremors. What's going on? Could it be that the entrance of the divine tomb has reopened? Some people hurriedly flew towards the entrance, their faces filled with shock. Hong. Right at this moment, on the mountain peak that was about 30,000 meters from the center of the divine tomb, a terrifying earthen yellow pillar suddenly rose up. The 10,000-meter-wide earthen yellow pillar contained boundless earth elemental energy, and the enormous pillar connected to the universe. Seeing this scene, everyone around the North Pole divine tomb revealed shocked expressions. What happened in the divine tomb? Could someone have obtained the inheritance of the divine tomb? Hiss, how long is this pillar that connects to the void? At least 100 kilometers, right? More than 100 kilometers. How could there be such a heaven and earth phenomenon? What on earth happened? The change in the divine tomb caused everyone around to tremble. When the earthen yellow pillar rose, the entire world could see the phenomenon there. Chapter 1999. 1999. In the 1999 divine tomb, among the mutated space locusts. Ha ha ha, the body of a mountain, the body of a mountain, I have finally obtained the body of a mountain. I, flying dust, from a speck of dust, have finally grown into a mountain. In the future, I, flying dust, will become the mountain god lord. I use mountains to suppress mountains and rivers, I use mountains to suppress the starry sky, ha ha ha. While everyone in the outside world was looking at the North Pole god's tomb in shock, a 100-meter-tall figure stood proudly in the main peak in the center of the god's tomb. Around him, small mountains were rotating around him. He was shirtless and there were many mountain patterns on his body. In the sky, the main peak of the god's tomb was hovering above him, and the earth-yellow energy pillar that reached the sky rushed out from the mountain peak. With the stars as the thick soil bearing my mountain body rise. Chen Feiyang roared, his eyes filled with excitement as he stared at the main peak in the sky. Wang. A terrifying mountain energy poured into his body. Mountain God Lord once used his invincible divine body to cross the void and become a God Lord. He once destroyed a star with one punch. I, Qin Feiyang, will use my tiny body to destroy everything. Qin Feiyang's face revealed a burning expression as he felt his body rapidly improving. Scenes appeared in his mind. Once he suffered humiliation. Once he paid the price for following the gods to earth. Once he cultivated with all his might. When I return, it will be the time for the world to worship me. When the North Pole god tomb mutated in the South Pole. In the eternal divine kingdom, a 1,000-meter-wide divine light tiger was quietly lying there. Sensing the change in the North Pole, the divine light tiger slowly opened its eyes. Its eyes were like the eyes of a miniature divine tiger as it looked towards the north. It's that guy Shan Yu's divine tomb. I remember that old guy Shan Yu died completely. Did someone obtain his inheritance? It looks like he obtained the inheritance of Shan Yu's body. The god of light muttered as he looked at the divine pond of light in front of him. Lord God, when are we going to leave? With your strength, you will definitely be able to suppress us for an entire lifetime. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. An old man was wearing a white robe. On the robe was written the divine servant of light wings. If people on earth saw the appearance of the old man, they would definitely be shocked. He was the strongest person in the fire god palace, Sui Yin, who brought the divine weapon and crashed into the divine tomb. Wait for my strength to recover a little. The light divine tiger glanced at Sui Yin indifferently. He slowly stood up and walked into the divine pool of light. It's the Lord God. Sui Yin bowed respectfully and shouted loudly, when the Lord God steps out of the eternal divine kingdom, it will be the dawn. A new light will envelop the world. Roar. The divine light tiger heard his words and roared happily. You will be below 10,000 people. The divine light tiger's voice entered Sui Yin's ears, causing Sui Yin's body to tremble. His face was filled with excitement. The divine light tiger was the divine light wing lord who had fallen. At the South Pole, it was not a divine tomb, but the divine kingdom of the eternal God Lord. When the God Lord comes out of the mountain, the Dragon King will be nothing but an ant. Even in the boundless star field, he will still be a top-tier existence. Sui Yin's body trembled as he thought to himself, his eyes filled with fire. Now that Sui Yin had narrowly escaped death and entered this place, he only wanted to obtain the opportunity to kill the Dragon King. Now the Dragon King was no longer in his eyes. What he was going to conquer next was the boundless star field. With a wave of his arm, the God of Light with the God of Light as the core flew to him and laid down beside him. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. He jumped onto the divine tiger and flew backward. What's going on? At this moment at the Ocean Dragon Palace, Wang Xian sensed the movement from the divine kingdom of the North Pole. He flew to the surface of the sea with a shocked expression. Looking at the huge earthy yellow pillar that went straight into the starry sky, his face was filled with a solemn expression. Even he couldn't achieve such a terrifying power. Could it be that someone from the divine tomb of the North Pole really obtained the inheritance of the Master God? Wang Xian frowned slightly. The inheritance of the Master God was above the gods. A Master God could easily wipe out the Dragon Palace. In fact, a Master of God could even destroy the entire earth with his full strength. The power of the Master of God was unpredictable. Wang Xian was not afraid of the Temple of Ling Shao or the gods in the boundless galaxy. He was still afraid of the Master of God. Dragon King, Earth is about to enter the chaotic space zone. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui appeared beside Wang Xian and reported to him. Oh, have you entered the chaotic space zone? Wang Xian had a serious expression on his face. The chaotic space zone was the most dangerous area to travel to in the boundless space zone. Chaotic space zones existed in many places in the universe. Some of these chaotic space zones were formed naturally while others were formed due to the battle between terrifying experts. The so-called chaotic space zones were the chaotic energy of the universe. Asteroids and gigantic flaming planets shuttled through them. There were even some terrifying creatures born in the chaotic region. Back when the gods had descended here, many of the gods had fallen and all died in the chaotic region. Even some big shots in the boundless galaxy didn't dare to take this risk. If one wasn't careful, 7 or 8 wisps of divine fire gods would also die in the chaotic region. It would take 1.5 years to pass through this region. In the following 1.5 years, Earth would be extremely dangerous. However, in order to lead Earth, the Lingshao Treasured Palace and the Holy Church had already found a relatively safe path. As long as they had the protection of the gods, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to cross that region. Furthermore, with the Dragon Palace around, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to cross the chaotic region. Get the members of the Dragon Palace to pay attention. If there's a situation ahead, deal with it immediately. Wang Xian reminded Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gui nodded his head. The change in the divine tomb caused a huge change, especially the khaki energy pillar. Countless people tried to enter the divine tomb through the energy pillar, but they were instantly killed by the energy inside. Even the god of the divine peak from the Dragon Gate Academy shook his head and returned. The matter of the divine tomb shook the world. Soon, another piece of news caused a huge discussion. Dragon Gate Academy announced that they would enter the chaotic region of the universe next. Everyone was careful. When they heard this news, everyone's expressions changed slightly. Especially those disciples who had followed the gods to descend, their faces revealed a trace of nervousness. A 1.5 years of traveling in the chaotic star field was filled with many dangers. With the Dragon King around, we should be fine. The Dragon King and the others are so powerful. Soon, some people's worries were dispelled. Back then, when the gods could descend here with the Dragon King's strength, he would definitely be able to bring them through safely. Chapter 2000. 2000 Under the 2000 mutated space locusts in the divine tombs. In the chaotic star field, there was no sunlight. This was a place where even the sun could not shine. One formation after another rose up and enveloped Earth, creating a formation of the sun. It rose from the east and fell from the west, replacing the original sun. Moreover, because of the recovery of spiritual energy, The plants on Earth did not need to undergo photosynthesis at all. Spiritual energy was the best energy. Look over there, that huge meteorite. Oh my God, this meteorite is even bigger than the moon. This star field is simply too shocking. If not for the Dragon King and the others leading us, how advanced would our technology be to be able to pass through this star field? After Earth entered the chaotic star field for a week, the appearance of the chaotic star field gradually appeared in front of everyone. Those incomparably huge chaotic meteorites and those oddly shaped planets brushed past Earth. There's a meteorite right in front of us. Not good, we're going to crash into it. Suddenly, everyone's faces were filled with shock as they looked at the meteorite in front of them that had a circumference of over 1,000 kilometers. Their faces were filled with shock. It can't be, we're going to crash into it. Some timid people looked over with shock on their faces. Whoosh, whoosh. However, at this moment, two figures directly disappeared into the void. Bus. Vaguely, two figures could be seen standing on the right side of the meteorite and pushing it with force. The meteorite, which was over 1,000 kilometers long, floated to the side. It's the two gods of the Dragon Palace, hiss. We don't have to worry. With the Dragon King here, we'll be fine. This was the first time the people on Earth had experienced such a situation. Seeing the meteorite in front of them being pushed away, they let out a sigh of relief. It's dark all around. Other than some meteors that occasionally burst into flames, Earth is the most eye-catching. I think the most eye-catching thing is that earthy yellow light pillar. That energy light pillar directly rushed into the void. It's said to be over 1,000 kilometers away. Some people looked at the huge earthy yellow energy pillar at the North Pole, their faces filled with surprise and curiosity. What was the reason for the energy pillar charging into the void over 1,000 kilometers away? Earth continued to move forward, encountering all sorts of situations from time to time. GG. In the endless darkness of the chaotic region, a pitch-black creature with wings, a head like a locust and 4 sharp claws was searching for all kinds of energy to feed in the chaotic starfield. It made a special sound from its mouth. Each monster was 3 meters in size and did not look very powerful. At most, they were comparable to demigods, but they could travel in the starry sky. This special creature was known as the space beast in the universe. The ordinary space beasts had the strength of God level and above. The powerful space beasts were comparable to the eternal God Lord or even higher. There were brutal space beasts that could even destroy a star field. It was extremely terrifying. Although these 3-meter-long space beasts were small and weak, their most terrifying part was their numbers. At the source of the sound, tens of millions of these space beasts were flying in the chaotic star field like locusts. However, these tens of millions of them were only a small number to these space beasts. They were known as the space locusts in the universe. Chirp, 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 chirp. They were flying aimlessly and preying on their prey. Suddenly, the space locusts at the front made a rapid sound. They were like cats that had smelled the fishy smell. They immediately changed their direction and flew to the right. They were very fast, twice as fast as ordinary demigod creatures. The densely packed space locusts that covered an area of more than 100 kilometers were like meteorites that streaked across the void. GGGG. At this moment, an excited voice came from the front again. A group of space locusts were staring at the earthy yellow energy pillar with blood-red eyes in the darkness. GGGG. Following that, a group of space locusts flew toward the earthy yellow energy pillar with incomparable excitement. It was overwhelming and densely packed. Space locusts, these are the space locusts from the mountain god lord's inheritance. Good stuff, good stuff. Mountain Nest, come in. Aha, the heavens are really helping me. So I, Qin Feiyang, am the darling of this piece of space. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, when Qin Feiyang sensed tens of millions of space locusts flying towards the Earth attribute energy pillar, his face did not show the slightest bit of panic. Instead, he revealed an excited expression. His eyes were burning as he stared at the space locusts in the sky. His body trembled. An even denser amount of Earth elemental energy charged towards the energy pillar. At this moment, the tens of millions of space locusts crazily flew towards the god's tomb along the energy pillar. It's too little, it's still too little. The number of space locusts is too little. Let's have more. The space locusts flew into the divine tomb along the earthen yellow energy pillar and disappeared into the body of the flying dust. It was as if his body had become the nest of the space locusts. And his body seemed to be endless. GGGG. At this moment, the space locusts in the sky let out ear-piercing cries that spread far and wide. Dragon King, there's a change in the void. There are creatures around. The change in the void immediately attracted the attention of the experts in the Dragon Palace. They reported to Wang Xian. Are there any creatures? Wang Xian's face showed a hint of seriousness. He flew directly to the sky above the Dragon Palace and looked into the void. Dragon King, according to the records in the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, these are space locusts. They roam the void and feed on all kinds of energy. Prime Minister Gue came to Wang Xian's side and said to him, "These space locusts are comparable to the strength of a first-level demigod. The leader level is slightly stronger. These tens of millions of them belong to a small group of space locusts. They must have been attracted by the earthy yellow energy pillar in the North Pole Divine Tomb. That energy pillar is really troublesome." Wang Xian looked into the void and was slightly shocked. Tens of millions of space locusts that were comparable to a first-level demigod could completely destroy a planet. He looked at the energy pillar and stared at the space locusts one by one. To avoid accidents, we have to destroy them. Such a large number of space locusts is also a lot of energy. Wang Xian ordered Prime Minister Gue, who was beside him. "It's the Dragon King." Prime Minister Gue nodded his head. However, at this moment, an urgent voice covered the entire earth, causing Wang Xian to raise his eyebrows slightly. GGGG. At this moment, a dense response suddenly sounded in the void. "Dragon King, these tens of millions of space locusts are just the vanguard. There are even more at the back." Prime Minister Gue's pupils constricted slightly as he immediately said, "More ants could bite an elephant to death." It was the same for the space locusts. With tens of millions of space locusts, if a wisp of divine fire god did not escape and fight against them, a wisp of divine fire god would soon be engulfed and devoured. Chapter 2001. 2001 Space Beast, Kun Shang. What's that sound? What happened? What a terrifying sound. What's going on? Could it be that we've encountered some danger again? When that dense sound reverberated through the entire starry sky, everyone on Earth could hear it clearly. The roars of countless creatures made people's scalps go numb. Even those who were sleeping were instantly awakened by the sound and immediately walked out. Oh my God, that's... When everyone looked up at the starry sky, shock appeared on their faces. There were countless starry locusts and countless pairs of blood-red eyes. At a glance, there were so many of them that one could not see the end. It was as if the entire Earth was covered by the starry locusts. Those are space locusts, space locusts. Any small-scale space locusts have the power to devour gods. Hiss, how did we meet these space beasts? These locusts are very difficult to deal with. Unless we destroy all of them, these things will hold a grudge. Look, they are rushing towards the energy pillar. They were attracted by that terrifying earthen yellow energy pillar. A series of shocked voices rang out. Everyone's scalps went numb as they watched everything. The sky above Earth was actually completely covered by these creatures. This was only the surface. Just how many of these locusts were behind it? 1 billion? 10 billion? Or 100 billion? This made people think of the locust disaster on Earth. However, that locust disaster was nothing compared to the one in the starry sky. The locusts feed on all sorts of flesh and blood and energy, but they seem to be attracted by the energy pillar and have no intention of attacking us. Some of the disciples who had followed the gods to descend had a better understanding of the astral beasts, so they kept introducing them to the people around them. However, even if the countless astral locusts did not launch any attacks, they were still filled with a savage aura, causing everyone's expressions to become extremely grave. If the countless space locusts were to attack them, how would they be able to defend against them? Would the Dragon King be able to defend against them? According to the disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, a few tens of millions of space locusts would be able to cause a wisp of divine fire god to flee in panic. Would the Dragon King and the rest of them be able to defend against the countless space locusts? Why are there so many space locusts? At this moment, in the sky above the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian looked at the starry locust that had completely covered the starry sky with a grave expression. Around him, a group of divine realm experts from the Dragon Palace followed behind him. Other than that, there were 7 other clones standing there. They stared at the locusts in the void. There are so many locusts. Even if we were to kill them, it would be a little strenuous. Ao Crab looked at the space locust within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers and was slightly shocked. Although Ao Crab was comparable to a god with 8 wisps of divine fire, he still felt his scalp go numb in the face of so much fear in the space. These space empires within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers could almost submerge him. Dragon King, they are surging toward the energy pillar. They have entered the divine tomb through the energy pillar. Ao Chi-Tian, Ao Chi, and the others were looking at the energy pillar with a solemn expression on their faces. The divine tomb in the North Pole seems to be the divine tomb of the mountain god. The mountain god became the divine master because of his unique physique. It seems to be the body of a mountain. Mountains hold down mountains and rivers. With one punch, the sun, moon, mountains and rivers are shattered. Huar and Kair frowned slightly as they spoke from the side. Wang Xian looked at the countless space locusts that had suddenly gathered in the void and did not attack on his own. He had no idea how many space locusts there were in the void. He did not dare to attack rashly. Haha, I didn't expect there to be so many space locusts. What a pity. With my current strength, I can only take in 5 billion of them. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, Qin Feiyang was looking at the countless space locusts charging at him with excitement. The number of space locusts had completely exceeded his expectations. What a pity, I hope that after my strength increases, you guys will still be here. Qin Feiyang looked at the void with a regretful expression. Wang? His body trembled, and the entire earthen yellow energy pillar trembled slightly, as if it had completely sealed the entrance. GGGGG. The moment the passageway closed, waves of tyrannical aura suddenly came from the surrounding space locusts. They let out sharp cries and the countless space locusts in the sky began to panic. GGGG. Suddenly the locusts opened their sharp mouths and bit towards the earthen yellow energy pillar. However, they realized that they couldn't do anything to the energy pillar, and their blood-red eyes became even more irritable. GGG. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying aura charged towards Earth. Not good, these space locusts are going crazy. At this moment, everyone could see the space locust's irritation, and their expressions changed drastically. Chirp chirp. The next moment, everyone saw the dense swarm of space locusts charging towards them. Oh no, we're done for. Everyone's faces were filled with horror. Ao Xingmu, lead the Starwood Combat Division to form a barrier on the mainland. When Wang Xian saw the space locusts attacking, his expression changed slightly as well. He immediately gave an order to Ao Xingmu. It's the Dragon King. Out of the 2,000 warriors of the Starwood Combat Division, including Ao Xingmu, 6 members of the Starwood Combat Division lit the divine fire. Once they lit the divine fire, they would have the strength to fight against the 4 wisps of the divine fire god. The rest of the members of the Starwood Combat Division were all at the level of demigod level 9 and at the peak. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The entire Starwood Combat Division immediately flew toward the mainland. Especially the 6 members who had lit up the divine fire, the branches under their bodies immediately spread to the surroundings. Ao Xingmu's branches covered an area of a few thousand kilometers. The branches hung down one by one. They stared coldly at the space locusts that were diving down from the sky. All members of the combat division of the Dragon Palace, get ready. Wang Xian shouted softly. Yes. The members of the Demon Combat Division, the Heaven's Eye Arrow Division, the Mount Division, the Thunder Division, the Dragon Guard, and the Dolphin Support Division immediately responded loudly. Kill? Wang Xian waved his arm. Kill? The group of members of the Dragon Palace immediately flew towards the sky to meet the dense swarm of space locusts. It's the members of the Dragon Palace. The subordinates of the Dragon King have made their move. All of them are level 1 demigod space locusts. If they rush down, we will be killed instantly. I hope the Dragon King and the others can hold them off. Hiss, look at how powerful the members of the Dragon Palace are. After they spread out their thorns, they covered a radius of several thousand kilometers. There are 6 of them. They are too powerful. When the members of the Dragon Palace made their move, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Seeing the members of the Starwood Combat Division flying over one by one to hold back most of the sky, everyone was shocked and a little nervous at the same time. Chapter 2002 2002 Space Beast, Kuan Zhong. Thorns hung down and covered the sky of the continent. Now that the continent had become one, the members of the Dragon Palace were guarding it. There were 2,000 members of the Starwood Combat Division and 6 beings who had ignited the divine fire. They floated in the sky, and the thorns built up an enormous defense in the sky. Thorns fell from tens of thousands of meters away, and some of them could even be touched with one's hand. Chirp, 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 chirp. In the sky, countless space locusts pounced toward Earth. They had blood-red eyes, sharp claws, and sharp teeth. Space beasts had a special characteristic, which was that their instincts were higher than their intelligence. Space beasts rarely had the intelligence to speak human language. Most of them relied on their instincts to fight, kill, hunt, and survive. Roar, roar, roar. In the ocean, the demon monkeys, thunder shrimp, and the others also roared, and a terrifying aura welcomed the space locusts. Have all the members of the Dragon Palace come out? There are more than 20,000 warriors. Their auras are so terrifying. Back then, only 2,000 demon monkeys could fight against more than 100,000 heavenly soldiers, heavenly generals, and holy warriors. Now, 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace and dozens of gods will definitely be able to resist the space locusts. When everyone saw the 20,000 or so members of the Dragon Palace rush into the sky, their faces instantly revealed a look of awe. At this time, the Dragon Palace was their guardian god. All disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy who are at least at the demigod level, follow me in battle. If you want to become stronger and become a god, you will have to go through all sorts of battles. Go. At the 3 Dragon Gate Academies, the figures of God Peaks Ji Lingfei, Xiao Ran, and another god were heard. Hundreds of voices immediately flew into the sky, right next to the members of the Starwood War Department. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When countless space locusts entered Earth's 100,000-meter domain, the members of the Starwood War Department attacked the sky with countless thorns. At this moment, at least 100 million thorns stabbed towards the space locusts. G. In an instant, an earth-shattering scream sounded, and countless space locusts let out ear-piercing sounds before dying. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, nearly 100 million corpses fell toward the ground. Hiss. Seeing the space locust corpses fall like rain, everyone's faces revealed shock. These are demigod-level space beasts. The Dragon King's subordinates are so terrifying. Not good. Look, we've killed at least 100 million space locusts, but there aren't any signs of reduction. Everyone looked at the falling bodies of the space locusts in shock. However, they soon discovered that the number of space locusts attacking from the sky didn't seem to decrease. How many locusts are there? These locusts are comparable to the strength of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. If there really are billions and billions of them, how can we defend against them? Some of the disciples who came with the gods showed terrified expressions. Could the Dragon King really defend against tens of billions of them? Roar. In the sky, the Demon War Department, the Thunder Department, and the Dragon Guards rode the Fire Phoenix Dragon Seed into the sky and began the second round of attack. More than 40 godly state experts of the Dragon Palace launched a terrifying attack at the same time. The energy that blotted out the sky shocked everyone. Billions of corpses fell toward the ground. Hiss. Everyone on Earth looked at the large number of corpses that fell, and their faces were full of shock. However, soon, a trace of solemnity appeared on everyone's faces. 5 minutes had passed, and at least billions of corpses fell to the ground. However, the number of space locusts in the void did not decrease at all. How many space locusts are there? The experts of the Dragon Palace have killed countless of them. Some people watched in shock, and a bad premonition slowly emerged in their hearts. There are simply too many space locusts. At the same time, Ao Qitian Ao Xingmu, and the group of mad dragons in the sky also frowned slightly, and a hint of solemnity appeared on their faces. In the beginning, the countless space locusts were 100,000 meters away from Earth. However, they were now 50,000 meters away. I can't see the edge. The number of these brother-controlled locusts is probably in the hundreds of billions. At this moment, Ao Yao came back from the void and his voice reached their ears. This caused the expressions of the leaders of the Dragon Palace to change drastically. At the same time, in the sky above the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian also heard Ao Yao's report. His face sank slightly. According to the records in the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, 100 billion starry locusts are considered a large-scale disaster. Even if there are more than 100 gods, it would be extremely difficult to deal with them together. How did we encounter such a large-scale swarm of starry locusts? Prime Minister Jiu's expression was a little awkward. If there are fewer of them, they are completely resources to us. However, if there are more of them... Wang Xian frowned slightly. His expression didn't look good either. Although they wouldn't be in any danger with the Dragon Palace around, the rest might not be so. Woo dat, I want to eat food. At this moment an extremely dull voice suddenly rang in Wang Xian's ears. It was as though he was holding a huge loudspeaker and shouting beside his ear. He was slightly stunned. Wang Xian immediately looked down and saw the huge creature in the Dragon Palace. Xiaolan. The first Kuan of Jianghu was upgraded to level 6 in the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace would be able to accommodate him. At this moment, Xiaolan occupied an area of 200 kilometers around the Dragon Palace. His body had also reached the size of 100 kilometers. He was an incomparably terrifying giant beast. Recently he had obtained countless resources. Naturally, Wang Xian did not forget Xiaolan. As a Kuan that used to feed on top-tier bloodlines in the universe, a Kuan that terrified all top-tier bloodlines, Wang Xian naturally had to focus on nurturing it. Now, Xiaolan's strength was comparable to a god with a wisp of divine fire. There were no realms or ranks in the Kuan. As long as there was enough bloodline food, it could continue to grow. Xiaolan, will your strength be a match for these locusts? Wang Xian looked at Xiaolan and asked with a frown. Xiaolan called Lan Qingyue Mama, so naturally she would call him Daddy. Woo Daddy, I'm not afraid of them. Xiaolan said immediately. Alright, then you can go. Once you are in danger, go back immediately. Wang Xian nodded his head. Woo, it's Daddy. Xiaolan nodded her head with excitement in her eyes. Her eyes that were thousands of meters wide looked at the locusts in the starry sky with excitement. Bus. He swayed his huge body and flew out of the Dragon Palace. A black hole appeared in front of him. Xiaolan went straight into the black hole. Wang Xian looked at him and raised his eyebrows slightly. Woo. At this moment, a deafening sound was heard from the swarm of locusts in the starry sky. Damn Xiaolan. When Wang Xian raised his head and looked over, he couldn't help but swear. His eyes widened slightly. Chapter 2003. 2003 Space Beast, Wuxia. Woo. A voice filled with excitement came from the space locusts. At this moment, even the entire space locusts were slightly stunned. This was like a sheep that had suddenly blended into a pack of wolves. Little Blue had suddenly appeared, causing all the surrounding space locusts to be stunned. Oh my god, what is that thing? Why did a terrifying giant beast suddenly appear from the space locusts? At this moment, not only was the swarm of space locusts stunned, everyone below looked at Little Blue, who was in the swarm of space locusts, with shocked expressions on their faces. It's over. The space locusts haven't been destroyed yet, and now such a huge beast has appeared. This is a real space beast. This 100-kilometer large body is a real space beast, Is the heavens going to destroy us? What was the concept of a 100-kilometer long body? It was the size of a small city. But now, a giant beast, a 100-kilometer long body, was comparable to some large meteorites. Was Earth really going to be finished? Woo. Just as everyone was frightened by Xiaolan's sudden appearance in the sky, Xiaolan once again let out an extremely excited sound. Little Blue opened its huge mouth and started to devour the surrounding space locusts. Everyone below could see the bloody mouth. This scene was exactly the same as a whale swallowing countless shrimp in the ocean. Little Blue, which was 100 kilometers in size, and its mouth, which was more than 10 kilometers in size, started to devour. Moreover, there seemed to be a powerful suction force in its mouth. With a single bite, at least tens of millions of space locusts were sucked into his mouth and swallowed directly into his stomach. GG. Seeing the space behemoths suddenly appear and swallow their own kind, all the space locusts in the surroundings began to boil. This was the first time they had seen such an arrogant fellow directly charge into their group. In an instant, Little Blue's body was covered by the space locusts. Buzz. However, when the space locusts landed on Little Blue's body and bit him with their sharp claws and teeth, an earthen yellow light flashed past. An extremely terrifying suction force was transmitted from Little Blue's body. Pa. Under this suction force, the locusts turned into blood like flies that had been hit by a palm. The blood slowly merged into Xiaolan's body. Woo woo. At this moment Xiaolan let out an extremely excited sound again. It opened its bloody mouth again and continued to devour the locusts around it. It was like a whale that had been hungry for a long time meeting a group of shrimps. Indeed, the locusts were like shrimps in front of Xiaolan. When Wang Xian saw this heaven-defying scene, he was astonished. With his current strength, he had to be cautious when he entered this endless swarm of locusts. Even after Xiaolan entered, she was still so arrogant. This should be the characteristic of a Kuan. A Kuan does not belong to the ocean but to the starry skies. If the space beasts have a level, a Kuan is the best existence. This is similar to the dominance of the divine dragon clan over the sea creatures. Even if a Kuan cannot rule over the other space beasts, it is impossible to kill a space beast that is weaker than it, even if the number of the other party has reached an unbelievable level. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. If the locusts were replaced by aquatic creatures, Wang Xian would dare to charge over. This was because as long as the level of the aquatic creatures was not higher than him, no matter how many aquatic creatures there were, they would not be able to kill him. This was the strength and prestige of a race at the peak of the universe. What is going on? That giant beast seems to be devouring the locusts. They are not in cahoots. Everyone below was slightly stunned when they saw the giant beast devouring the locusts, and they let out a sigh of relief. The members of the Dragon Palace immediately stopped when they saw this. Woo woo. In the sky, Little Blue opened its huge mouth and devoured the locusts every 10 seconds. Each time it did so, tens of millions of locusts would be devoured. In addition, countless space locusts were lying on Xiaolan's body and attacking him continuously. Only when the khaki energy on Xiaolan's body vibrated and when he opened his mouth could they sense that he was still alive. Otherwise, at a glance, they would think that he had been devoured by the space locusts. Xiaolan's sudden appearance caused the space locusts to target Xiaolan. Countless space locusts surrounded Little Blue in the void. On Earth, when everyone saw this barbaric scene, they opened their mouths slightly. Is this the universe's starry sky? This is a heaven-defying space behemoth, an endless sea of insects. No wonder they can't cross the void before reaching the God realm. This is too terrifying. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, their hearts trembling. Look, that space beast seems to have doubled in size. An hour had passed and many people's necks were stiff. However, at this time, they discovered that the space beast that had just appeared had doubled in size. The number of locusts that had been devoured by the space beast was at least tens of billions. Now the space beast's size had doubled, and the increase in size made the aura on the space beast even more terrifying. Moreover, the devouring speed had increased by 2 to 3 times. How terrifying is Xiaolan's strength now? Wang Xian was floating in the sky above the Dragon Palace. Looking at Xiaolan who had increased in size, his face was filled with shock. With the doubling of his size, the increase in his strength was not as simple as doubling. With a huge body of 200 kilometers, if he were to hit the Earth, he would be able to send the Earth flying. What kind of monster is that? How can it be so terrifying? At this moment, Qin Feiyang, who was in the North Pole Divine Tomb, sensed the change in the void. He was shocked. His pupils constricted as he stared at Little Blue in the starry sky in fear. Ever since he obtained the God Lord's inheritance, this was the first time he felt a sense of fear, a strong sense of fear. It was as if the other party was his natural enemy. Why do I feel that before I become a God Lord, I'm not a match for that space beast? I hope that fellow can leave this place as soon as possible. His pupils constricted as he muttered. GGGG. At this moment, about 3/5 of the massive swarm of locusts in the void had already been reduced. The locusts finally realized how terrifying Little Blue was. They let out panicked cries as they fled towards the void. Woo woo. Little Blue saw that the food wanted to escape, so it naturally did not agree. It opened its huge mouth and started to devour the food. GGG. The locusts that were close to Little Blue were devoured, while the locusts that were further away were fleeing for their lives. Xiaolan swayed her current size of more than 200 kilometers and chased after her. She soon disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 2004. 2004. In 2004, all the female gods had become gods. Let's go. The space locusts have left, and so has that giant beast. In the void, the countless space locusts were frantically fleeing. When the incomparably terrifying space beast chased after them and left, everyone let out a heavy sigh. That space beast is too terrifying. It was actually able to cause the space locust that covered the sky to flee. If it wasn't for that space beast, we might have been finished. I didn't expect the chaotic starfield to be so terrifying. That space beast can probably destroy Earth, right? I wonder if Dragon King and the others can fight against that space beast. There's actually such a huge beast in this universe. Dragon King and the others can't either. The space locusts that filled the sky were actually swallowed by a space beast. That beast is too strong. Everyone had looks of relief as they discussed. The appearance of the space locusts and space beasts gave them a hint of understanding of this universe. Soon, some people looked at the energy pillar above the North Pole Divine Tomb. They knew that it was all because of this energy pillar that attracted so many space locusts. That energy pillar could be said to be the main culprit. I wonder what happened in the North Pole Divine Tomb. Some people thought. All members of the Dragon Palace, take all the bodies of the space locusts to the Dragon Palace. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. The members of the Dragon Palace flew down and collected the bodies of the space locusts. Although these space locusts are not as evil as some demon beasts, they are demigod-level creatures after all. The materials and flesh on their bodies are rare treasures. The Dragon Palace must have killed at least billions of space locusts. They have made a fortune this time. At this moment, the disciples who followed the gods looked at the corpses on the ground with envy. This was an extremely precious treasure to them. Xiao Ran, your Dragon Gate Academy should collect around 100 million locust corpses. Yes, Prime Minister Gue. At this moment, two more voices rang out in the sky. Dragon Gate Academy had participated in this battle, and the 4 gods of Dragon Gate Academy had each killed at least 10 million evil spirits. Dragon Gate Academy has obtained 100 million dead bodies. This, even if Dean Xiao and the others take out some, it will be enough to greatly improve Dragon Gate Academy. Hiss this. Dragon Gate Academy has the Dragon Palace behind it, and it will only become stronger and stronger in the future. Now, it seems that joining Dragon Gate Academy is the best choice. Unfortunately, it is a little difficult to join Dragon Gate Academy now. Envious voices sounded one after another. However, the students and disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy revealed excited expressions on their faces. They were undoubtedly number one now. This Xiaolan has chased into the void. I wonder when she will return. Wang Xian was floating in the sky above the Dragon Palace. Looking at Xiaolan who had completely disappeared, he frowned slightly. Xiaolan was a Kuan raised by Qingyu after all. Sometimes it might not listen to him. Moreover, Wang Xian was unable to summon Xiaolan back directly. Looks like I can only summon Xiaolan back when Qingyu returns. Wang Xian shook his head slightly. Even if the Kuan raised by the master of the Kuan was thousands of light years away, the Kuan would rush over as soon as it was summoned. As for Xiaolan, she wouldn't be able to run for long. Based on the instinct of the Kuan and Xiaolan's current strength, it would require the strength of a god master to kill it. Dragon King, we have harvested quite a lot this time. There are at least 5 billion dead bodies of the space locust. The lowest level of the space locust has reached the level of a demigod. At this moment, Prime Minister Gui came over to report excitedly. These locusts are too low in converting dragon blood. Wang Xian looked at these locusts. They were the lowest level creatures of the same level, so the conversion rate of dragon blood was much lower. Dragon King, I tried it just now. Although it's very low, 100 million dead bodies are enough for our current members of the Dragon Palace to ignite the divine fire. This group of space locusts can double the strength of our Dragon Palace. Prime Minister Gue said excitedly. Oh, that's not bad at all. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he revealed a hint of excitement. The dragon transformation pool of the Dragon Palace had fused with the characteristics of the insect nest of the insect race. It was indeed heaven-defying when it was upgraded. Now, he could understand why the bloodline of the insect race could only be considered as ordinary in the universe. They were able to perish together with the divine dragon race, the peak race of the universe. The speed of the bug race's advancement was too terrifying. As long as there were enough resources, a bug race army could be quickly formed. Fortunately, the bug race has already perished. He thought to himself. The great battle ended so abruptly, and very quickly members of the Dragon Palace brought billions of spoils of war to the Dragon Palace. Inside the dragon transformation pool, strands of dragon blood that were emitting a huge amount of energy flowed into it. When Earth reaches the boundless galaxy, the Dragon Palace will have more than 100 gods who can ignite the divine fire. Wang Xian's eyes sparkled. He was even more confident about stepping into the boundless galaxy. Dragon King. At this moment, Ao Nu's figure appeared beside Wang Xian. Ao Nu, why are you here? Wang Xian had arranged for Ao Nu to stay on the Transcendence continent to take care of Guan Shuqing and the other girls. When he saw that Wang Xian had returned, he was slightly surprised. Dragon King, the Dragon Queens are already preparing to ignite the divine fire. Let Ao Nu call out to you, Dragon King. Ao Nu reported to him. Ignite the divine fire? So fast? Wang Xian was slightly stunned. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. Let's go. We'll head there immediately. Without any hesitation, he rushed towards the extraordinary mainland. After entering the extraordinary mainland, Wang Xian arrived at the center of the Dragon and Phoenix Empire with a few teleportations. At the peak of the Ao Tian Mountain in the former Ao Shan Empire. When Wang Xian had just rushed over, he saw 11 figures floating in the sky. Back then, they had discovered a powerful formation at the peak of the Ao Tian Mountain. There were 11 futons there. Xu Qingyu and the others, who had been cultivating in seclusion for more than a year now, already possessed the ability to ignite the divine fire. The 11 of them floated in the sky, their bodies emitting an incomparably terrifying pressure. Countless people in the surrounding area looked at this scene, which was like a miracle. Their faces were filled with reverence. This was becoming a god. Moreover, it was their continent's empress and a group of empire's elders who ignited the divine fire together. They are still lacking the divine kingdom when they lit the divine fire. Fortunately, the Dragon Palace has prepared the divine kingdom for them in advance. Wang Xian looked at the saintly figures of Xu Qingyu and the rest of the girls. A smile appeared on his face. In the Dragon Palace, he had built a Dragon Queen Palace for the girls. He had modified it with the Dragon Cave and added the powerful materials from the other divine kingdoms. It was much stronger than the ordinary divine kingdoms. Wang Xian waved his arm and the divine kingdoms flew out one by one. At this moment, the sounds of heaven and earth rang out. Wisps of divine fire appeared above their heads. The divine fire was ignited. Chapter 2005. 2005 and 2005, I am the dust. Our empress and the elders are about to become gods. Not long ago it seemed like the Dragon King became a god. Now the empress and the others have become gods. There are 11 gods. Is our Transcendence continent about to enter the era of Pantheon? Once the empress and the others become gods, the continent will be more unified. Look, the Dragon King is there. Around the peak of the proud Heaven Mountain, every citizen of the Dragon Phoenix Empire looked at the empress and the others who were hovering 10,000 meters in the sky with deep respect. When they discovered the arrival of the Dragon King, their faces were filled with worship. The rise of the Dragon King, the might of the Dragon King, the power of the Dragon King, and other such books had been spread throughout the extraordinary continent. The deeds of the Dragon King had spread to every corner. Now that they saw the real person, everyone was filled with admiration and respect. Bus. When Wang Xian threw the divine kingdoms towards them, the divine kingdoms immediately floated above their heads. In an instant, a powerful divine might enveloped a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. Chirp, chirp. A phoenix cry was emitted from the mouth of the phoenix and Phoenix Pass. Roar, roar, roar. Ice-cold roars came from Fan Qinglan and Xiao Yu's mouths. Behind them, the shadows of divine dragons and phoenixes flickered. The divine kingdom was raised high above their heads. The only difference was that behind Lan Qingyue, there was an empty black hole. Although the aura was not as vast as Xu Qing and Xiao Yu's, it gave people a terrifying depth. Woo woo. A little blue's excited voice came from the black hole. The entire heaven and earth phenomenon and the huge aura lasted for a full 5 minutes. Below, everyone was already kneeling on the ground and worshipping respectfully. Xiao Xian. Brother. After the group of girls became gods, they looked at Wang Xian and pounced over excitedly. Have you missed us after spending a year outside? Guan Shuqing and the rest surrounded Wang Xian and asked with smiles on their faces. What do you mean by spending a year outside? I'm here to help your wives, alright? Earth has already taken care of it. Wang Xian looked at the group of girls with an innocent look on his face. Humph, it better be like this. The group of girls glanced at her with disbelief on their faces. They had no choice. It was his fault for bringing a girl with him every time he went out. They couldn't be blamed for rolling their eyes. I've already transferred the Dragon Palace to Earth. There's still a level 5 Dragon Palace left on the Transcendence continent. Let's go to the Dragon Palace on Earth later. Wang Xian said to them. Sure. The group of girls nodded and chirped. Congratulations to the Dragon Queen for becoming a god. Congratulations to the eldest princess and General Feng for becoming a god. At this moment, Prime Minister Gue, who had come over after hearing the news, congratulated them. Let's inform our family and ask them if they want to continue playing here or go back. The group of girls flew towards the foot of the lofty mountain peak where they were cultivating. I really didn't expect my daughter to actually become a god. Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingyue and Tang Yinshuan's parents walked over excitedly. Wang Xian greeted them one by one with a smile on his face. Fengying Jin, we'll bring you guys to the planet where we live. It's very fun there too. The group of them chatted for a while before Guan Shuqing and the rest spoke to Zhang Fengying, Ling and Jin. The two of them had never been to Earth. They had planned to take them there more than a year ago, but because of their cultivation they were delayed. Okay, I also want to see what kind of place can give birth to a scumbag like Xiaoxian. Zhang Fengying said with a smile. Then I'll take you to see it. Sister Fengyuan, let's go too. The group of girls said happily. They had just become gods, but they had completely transformed and were able to be together with Xiaoxian. Naturally they were very happy. Wang Xian stood at the side speechlessly and did not listen to their conversation. He patted Xiao Yu's head and chatted with Feng Ling Tian simply. Dragon King, come and take a look. At this moment, Prime Minister Gue walked over and said to Wang Xian in surprise. What's the matter? Wang Xian asked in surprise. Dragon King, please take a look at this starry sky map. Prime Minister Gue brought Wang Xian to the starry sky map again as he spoke. Dragon King, take a look. This starry sky map should belong to this star field. This is the starry sky map that we obtained from the Ling Shao treasured palace from the borderline of the boundless star field to Earth. I realized that the borderline of this boundless star field actually overlaps with the starry sky map of the Transcendence continent. Prime Minister Gue pointed at the starry sky map on it and took out the starry sky map of the Ling Shao palace. You mean that the Transcendence continent is in the boundless star field? Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. Yes, Dragon King. There's a 90% chance unless one of the two starry sky maps is wrong. Prime Minister Gue nodded his head affirmatively. If that's the case, we can move Earth to the side of the Transcendence continent in the future. Wang Xian was deep in thought. Connecting the Transcendence continent and Earth was a good thing for both planets. When the time comes, we can bring Earth to the direction of the Transcendence continent. Wang Xian said to Prime Minister Gue. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gue nodded his head. Xiaoxian, let's go back to Earth. At this moment, the voices of Shu Qing and the rest came from the side. Wang Xian turned around and nodded his head. Alright, let's go back. Everyone immediately flew towards Earth. I was originally a speck of dust, but now I can cover the stars. Just as Wang Xian and the rest were flying towards the Dragon Palace on Earth, a high and mighty voice suddenly rang out in the North Pole of Earth. The voice was not very loud, but everyone around the god's tomb could hear it clearly. At the same time, the energy beam that reached the sky in the North Pole of the god's tomb slowly dissipated. This power is enough to sweep across the entire Earth and the gods in the Temple of Heaven. This time, even the high and mighty gods have to grovel under my majestic body. On the main peak in the center of the god tomb, Qin Feiyang's face was filled with excitement. His 1,000-meter-long body was like a mountain, and his eyes were as bright as the stars. It's time to go out. I will make those who look down on me submit to my feet. When I return to the endless star area, I will make those fellows of my family kneel respectfully by my side. He muttered excitedly and slightly clenched his fists. GG. His body moved and a pair of wings made of space locusts appeared behind him. He gently flapped his wings and arrived in front of the mountain god lord. Peng. Thank you, master, for your inheritance. In the future, I will definitely spread the word, mountain, throughout the entire star area. He bowed respectfully, then slowly stood up and walked out of the divine tomb. As he walked, his body slowly shrank and turned into an ordinary person. The space locusts behind him also disappeared. I'm back. He looked outside and muttered. I was originally a speck of dust. I disappeared for a year and I'm back. Chapter 2006. 2006. In 2006, I was originally a speck of dust. Is this the current Earth? Why do I feel that this planet is emitting waves of vast power, even more vast than the extraordinary continent? On the ocean, when the group of girls arrived on Earth, all of them had shocked expressions on their faces. Even Feng Yuan looked at the current Earth with a face full of awe. In particular, there were a few places that were emitting a power that shocked them. Earth is the center of an ancient battlefield. There is a divine tomb in the North and South Pole that even I can't enter. That is the tomb of the eternal God. The girls knew some basic information about Earth from home. Wang Xian said to them. Eternal Lord. The group of girls were filled with shock. They had just attained the divine throne and couldn't imagine how strong the eternal Lord would be. Let's go. We'll go to the Dragon Palace to rest first. We'll tour Earth after resting for 2 days. Wang Xian said to them. The group of girls didn't say anything after hearing his words. Naturally, they knew what resting meant. Is this the level 6 Dragon Palace? It's so big. When they arrived in the sky above the Dragon Palace, the group of girls revealed a look of surprise. Oh right, Qingyue Xiaolan entered the void not long ago. Can you sense it? Wang Xian looked at Lan Qingyue and asked her. Yes, I can sense everything about Xiaolan. It is currently playing happily in the void. If I want to call it, it can rush over in an instant. Let it play in the void. Lan Qingyue nodded with a smile. Xiaolan's current strength is really beyond my expectations. Oh, how strong is Xiaolan now? Wang Xian asked curiously. I don't know either. Xiaolan doesn't have any hierarchy. I'm not too sure about the details. Lan Qingyue shook her head. Wang Xian nodded and led the group of girls into the Dragon Palace. Daddy. When Wang Xian and the rest entered the Dragon Palace, Huar's voice was heard immediately. At this moment, Wang Xian could feel a strong killing intent. The atmosphere turned solemn instantly. Huar and Kair also looked at Guan Shuqing and the rest who were beside Wang Xian. She frowned slightly and her eyes were sparkling. This is... Cold sweat appeared on Wang Xian's forehead. He had forgotten to tell the girls about Huar and Kair in advance. This is your mother's. He stammered as he spoke to Huar and Kair. However, the 2 girls did roll their eyes at him. A bunch of little girls. Huar pouted as she glanced at Guan Shuqing and the rest of the girls. This made Guan Shuqing and the rest of the girls' faces turn even darker. Come here, tell us what's going on. The group of girls walked into the bedroom with a dark face. They glanced at Wang Xian with murderous eyes. Let me explain. It's not what you think. Wang Xian said with a bitter face and immediately followed behind them. The 2 girls snorted coldly at the side. When they saw them entering the bedroom upstairs, they immediately looked at Prime Minister Gue. Prime Minister Gue, who are those people? Huar asked with an unpleasant expression. This little princess. Among those people, apart from one of them being the Dragon King's sister, the rest are all the Dragon Queens. Prime Minister Gue said with a slight bow. Dragon Queens? Are these all the wives of that big bastard? Huar Kair widened her eyes and immediately said. Ahem, they are the Dragon King's wives. Our Dragon Queen, well, can be considered the Phoenix Empress. There are a total of 9 of them. Prime Minister Gue replied embarrassedly when he heard Huar Kair's words. If others dared to call the Dragon King a big bastard, he might have made a move long ago, but there was nothing he could do. These 2 were little princesses. Although they were not real little princesses. I didn't expect this big bastard to be a big pervert with 9 wives. Our father only had 1 mother back then. This guy. Huar Kair widened her eyes slightly. Her small face was filled with anger. They had 9 more mothers. How could this be possible? The 2 little girls looked at each other in displeasure. Their faces were filled with displeasure. At this moment, Wang Xian was kneeling on the washboard in his bedroom and explaining righteously. The Lingxiao treasured palace and the holy church were all destroyed by the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. The entire Dragon King of Earth has been suppressed for an entire lifetime. In an aerial restaurant in a city, a handsome young man was sitting there. He was holding a cell phone in his hand as he checked the various messages on it. There was a hint of surprise on his face. I didn't expect the Dragon King to be so powerful. There are actually dozens of gods in the Dragon Palace. TSK. He shook his head gently. A Dragon King. Do you want to meet him? It would be a good choice if I could take him as my subordinate. He knocked on the table and murmured. Taking the Dragon King as my subordinate? Brother, did I hear you right? There is something wrong with your mental state. Are you like dust and stars? At this moment, a mocking voice suddenly came from the side. Ha! The young man raised his eyebrows and looked indifferently at a young man who was mocking him. There were 4 or 5 people sitting beside the young man. At this time they pointed at him and said in a low voice with some ridicule. Dust? Stars? Hee. The young man laughed when he heard his words and said faintly, I was indeed dust in the past. At least you know your place. When the young man in front heard his words, he said with a sneer. Hee, it's a pity that you have to prostrate at the feet of the dust in the past. As the young man spoke, he slowly stood up. Oh, what? The people on the opposite side slightly raised their eyebrows. The 5 people directly stood up and looked at him somewhat provocatively. Kneel down. The young man looked at them indifferently and shouted softly. He is indeed crazy. Hearing the young man's idiotic words, the 5 people on the other side laughed. One of them said. However, before he finished his words, he felt a great terror descending. They felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. In an instant, the 5 people's faces revealed fear and despair. Crack, crack, crack. Their legs trembled as if they were about to break. Plop, plop. The sound of kneeling could be heard. Don't kill us. The sound of begging came from their mouths as the 5 of them growled with fear on their faces. They even found it extremely difficult to speak. The young man they mocked stood in front of them like a giant, making them feel extremely small. Hee. The young man laughed when he saw them kneeling in front of him. My name is Chen Feiyang. Soon this name will cover the entire star field. Remember it. The young man said indifferently as he slowly walked forward, flying in the air. Chen Feiyang? The 5 of them looked at his figure with fear in their eyes. Around them, in the restaurant in the sky, everyone looked at the 5 people kneeling there in surprise. Chapter 2007. 2007 and 2007 I was a speck of dust. I'm going to meet a few friends first. I wonder what kind of expression they will have when they find out about my current strength. 10,000 meters in the air, Chen Feiyang was walking in the air with a smile on his face. He took a step forward and covered a distance of several hundred kilometers. He was calm and carefree, and his body was emitting an aura of fear towards the world. Feiyang, we thought you guys were already dead? Where are you? He dialed a number of his former companions and a voice came from the other end. Hee, I'll be there soon. Let's get together. Chen Feiyang said calmly. I'm participating in the Dragon Gate Academy's disciple assessment. Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. The Dragon Gate Academy's assessment officer will be here soon. The young man on the phone hurriedly hung up the phone. Dragon Gate Academy? Chen Feiyang listened to the busy tone on the phone and raised his eyebrows faintly. His gaze swept across his surroundings and his body moved, instantly disappearing. When his figure appeared, he was already standing at the entrance of a towering academy. At the entrance was an incomparably huge square. In front of the square stood tens of thousands of people. Noisy voices rang out. At a glance, all of them were existences above the profound void realm. Among them were quite a few former disciples of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Now, after obtaining the corpses of hundreds of millions of space locusts, the Dragon Gate Academy controlled an incomparably terrifying amount of resources. When the Dragon Gate Academy once again recruited disciples to prepare for the establishment of the 4th branch of the Dragon Gate Academy, countless people came to register to participate. Today was only the first day of the first batch of assessments. Wow, Chen Feiyang, why did you suddenly appear? Did you see me when you were on the phone just now? At this moment, a young man suddenly saw Qin Feiyang appear beside him. His face was shocked and he immediately walked over and said to him, "You brat, you disappeared for a year. What? Did you obtain any opportunities?" The young man walked over, patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder, and said with a smile on his face, "I got some opportunities." Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "I can go. Are you also here to participate in the exam of Longmen Academy?" The young man asked him with a smile. "No, I'm mainly here to see your friend." Qin Feiyang shook his head and said indifferently, "Hey good brother. Haha, I hope I can join Longmen Academy today." The young man said with a smile and patted his shoulder heavily. "Speaking of which, you're so much more handsome. TSK, I'm really envious." Move, move, move. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Everyone around was slightly stunned and quickly looked over. The sixth divine son Ling Xingqian. It's him. I didn't expect him to join the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. This is the sixth divine son of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. He should be at the 3rd or 4th level demigod now, right? I didn't expect him to join the Dragon Gate Academy too. At this moment, the young man beside Qin Feiyang let out a shocked voice. The surrounding people were also surprised when they saw him. After all, the one who came was the divine son of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. Even though Lingxiao was broken, his strength was still above everyone else. With Ling Xingqian's strength, he can easily join the Dragon Gate Academy. Feiyang, let's move aside. The youth beside Qin Feiyang pulled at him. Oh, Feiyang, quickly move aside. The youth noticed that Qin Feiyang was not moving at all and said anxiously, "Why should we move aside?" Qin Feiyang looked at the youth with a face full of smiles. "Why should we move aside? Why did he, Qin Feiyang, come here to obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord? Of course it was to look down on everything from above. Why did he come here? Naturally it was to show off. If he didn't show off after obtaining the opportunity, what meaning would it have? To travel at night in embroidered clothes? It didn't exist. In the past, when he met the divine son of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, he had to bow respectfully. Now, the other party had to kneel at his feet. When the young man heard Qin Feiyang's words, he was slightly stunned. His face was filled with astonishment. He felt that this friend of his had changed. "Those in front, get out of the way immediately." Right at this moment, a voice with a hint of berating could be heard. The young man's expression changed slightly. He pulled Qin Feiyang's arm once again. "Feiyang, get out of the way. We can't afford to offend you." Qin Feiyang ignored him and looked indifferently at the crowd behind him. Oh, what is this fellow trying to do? He actually dares to block Ling Xingqian's path. Even the ordinary disciples of Longmen Academy have to give Ling Xingqian some face, right? Is that guy stupid enough to stand in his way and look for trouble? The surrounding crowd saw Qin Feiyang, who happened to be in the middle, and said in a low voice, "No one has the right to make me move." At this moment, Qin Feiyang slightly raised his head and looked coldly at Ling Xingqian and the others behind him. His high and mighty tone caused everyone to be slightly shocked. "Oh, who are you?" At the back, Ling Xingqian was slightly stunned when he heard Qin Feiyang's words. His gaze was ice cold as he looked at Qin Feiyang, who was somewhat pretentious. "He's just an ordinary small fry," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. However, everyone around could hear that this fellow was extremely pretentious. "Since you're just a small fry, then scram." When Ling Xingqian heard his words, his pupils constricted. A powerful aura that belonged to the demigod level directly charged towards Qin Feiyang. Plop. However, at this moment, Ling Xingqian's expression was extremely shocked. His body could not help but kneel towards the ground. A muffled sound caused him to directly kneel in front of Qin Feiyang. His face was filled with fear as he stared at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. "No one has the right to make me scram." Qin Feiyang's calm voice rang out once again. At this moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. They stared at Qin Feiyang in shock. What's going on? It's that young man. His strength is definitely much stronger than Ling Xingqian. No wonder he dares to be so disdainful towards Ling Xingqian. Who is he? How come I've never heard of this #1 expert? The surrounding people revealed expressions of shock. The young man standing beside Qin Feiyang opened his mouth slightly, his face filled with shock. Hearing the surrounding voices and seeing the shock of his friends beside him, the corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth curled up slightly. This was an expert. All of this had just begun. He wanted to shock the entire world. Everyone quiet down. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the entrance of Longmen Academy. The powerhouse of Longmen Academy has come out. At this moment, everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they hurriedly looked forward. Feiyang, I didn't expect that you would actually obtain an opportunity. The young man at the side whispered to him with a face full of shock. Qin Feiyang faintly nodded his head, but there wasn't the slightest change on his face. The young man's heart was extremely shaken, and his gaze also looked towards the front of the academy. In front of the Dragon Gate Academy, more than 10 figures were floating there. In the middle of them was Lu Mingxin, who was wearing a pure white skirt. Look, Feiyang, that's Lu Mingxin. Back then she was quite outstanding in the Lingxiao treasured palace, but now she's even more beautiful. She's Ding Zhao's younger sister, and her strength has already reached the peak of the demigod realm. She's a goddess. I heard that countless people are pursuing her now. Diske, I don't have a chance. Feiyang, you've obtained an opportunity, so you might have a chance. She's the type you like. The young man looked at Lu Mingxin in the middle, and a fiery light flashed in his eyes. Oh, peak of the demigod realm, she's indeed becoming more and more beautiful. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Mingxin and raised his eyebrows. Lu Mingxin naturally knew that even in the past, with his strength, she was still a goddess to him. Not to mention that she had reached peak stage demigod and had a god as her brother. But now, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. She's barely worthy of me. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.